Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, Kathleen, I don't know how you did this when you were chair, because I'm very nervous and I don't think I can do it without any help. So can I call for the Scouts BSA to come join us to help us with the Pledge of Allegiance? Come on up, Scouts. They're going to bring the flags up to the stage. Then they're going to come on down and they're going to say a couple of words about the schools they attend and their name. And then we're going to all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Stage. Oh, I don't have to hold it. Oh, very good. Okay, please introduce yourself and say what school you go to and how much you like that school.
Christopher, I go to Eastern and I like the social aspect of it.
Ooh, nice.
Luigi, I go to Eastern and I really like the teachers.
I'm Charlotte, and I like the way that the teachers teach.
Fantastic. Okay, now we're all standing. Now it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Scouts. Most of us here who go to Greenwich Public Schools are Americans, and we want to be proud of that. And we also understand there are some people in our schools that are not, and either they aspire to or they're temporarily visiting us. So let's make sure we put our best foot forward in every meeting going forward to make sure we show everyone in the Greenwich Public School System that this country is the best country in the world, and we should all be very proud of it. So thank you. May I begin by making a motion to approve the consent agenda? Karen, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, good. All in favor, please put your hand up. All opposed? Nobody? We're good. Now we'll begin with honoring our various variety of athletes and other awards this evening, music awards and our National Merit Scholarship Program honorees. We'll begin by having Pete Georgie Jew, Mr. G. Did I mess it up really bad? Thank you. Everyone messes up. Nobody calls him by his real name or actually does. They just Mr. G. So come on up, please. You're Egypt.
Perfect. Good evening, Superintendent Jones, Chairperson Kelly, Board of Education members, and everyone in attendance today, both physically and virtually. Thank you all for taking the time to recognize our fall athlete, all-state high school student athletes. The Connecticut High School Coaches Association shows the following student athletes in their respective sports. Students, when I call your name, please stand and remain standing until the whole group is recognized. We ask the audience to hold applause till the end. In cross country, junior Kate Friedman. Cross country junior Christian Zawazlak. Cross country freshman Mateo Chisara. Field hockey senior Clara Miffelman. Golf senior Charles Schroy. Golf junior Owen Duda. Golf sophomore Alexander Ensling. Football Jake Kiernan, senior. Or he's a senior, excuse me. Football, senior Jack Wilson. Football, junior Griffin Galetta. Football, junior John Insigna. And football, sophomore Peter Van Vulakis. For swimming and diving, senior Daisy Decker. Junior Annabelle Guarnera. Junior Sydney G. And freshman Melissa Geiger. Folks, these are your all-state representatives from Greenwich High School. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Oh, my bad. I skipped over soccer. Soccer senior Lucas. Oh, God. Lucas, stand up. I also would like to thank you guys for recognizing not one, not two, but three all-state teams in the fall at Greenwich High School. First up to speak about their team and recognize them will be Jeff Santilli, who is the coach of the golf team at Greenwich High School. Jeffrey?
Congratulate. And Jeff and I are friends for years. We worked together some years ago.
Years ago.
Jeff has the coolest job. You play golf after school.
No.
I
That's a
know,
myth,
I'm
folks.
I'm
We do
just
not
teasing.
play golf anymore.
But please, during your speech or before your speech, can you please make reference to your handicap, what it is, please? And then your speech. Thank you.
I don't know. They'll give me a hard time about that one. So we'll just call it about a 4 or so, right, Charles? Is that good enough? All right. Good evening and thank you for having us here tonight. I first want to start off because sometimes it goes overlooked to say thank you to my assistant coach, Matt Fletcher, for all he does for this program. Without him, we cannot have the boys that we have here this evening and get to the point that we usually get to. So thank you, Matt. He didn't want to come up here tonight, but so. I'll be quick. I just wanted to go over a few things for the season. Obviously, we had a great year and that's why we're here this evening. But to be the coach of these guys, it was just such a special year. It was an easy year to coach. They were just a great group. I honestly think we kept Rinaldi's and Villanueva in business this year with some of the food trips, but we discussed at the beginning of the year what it was going to take to get to this point and to hold a few titles at the end of the year. And with that, they really put the extra time in over the weekends to get to the point where they got to. And obviously all these athletes here, as Michael Jordan says, champions are made when no one is watching. And that's clear with the soccer, football team and the golf team. With that, these 6 guys joined only 2 other teams on record in the program history that I have found, going back to when Rick Osvik was a coach, 1981 and 2012, to go undefeated and win both the state and FCX championship. So they joined some elite company and I'm very proud of them for that. It was also very impressive, as you see all in this room, how many all state athletes we had, and having 3 out of the 6 on the golf team was just what an accomplishment that was. But I'd like to introduce the players this year, starting down on the very end. You think you messed up Pete's name? No. AJ Ensline. We got that right for the first time all season. Guys, stand up. Who we got? Jack Hopper. Emmett Graham. Owen Duda. Dylan Harris. Charles Schroy. And Coach Matt Fletcher. Again, thank you for having this evening and we'll continue to make the school and community proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Next up is our boys soccer team, coached by Kurt Putnam.
Kurt is a friend of mine for 20 years. We've known each other for a very long time.
Being on boards together.
Absolutely. And he taught me a lot about soccer. I spent many years coaching soccer, youth soccer, both in travel and Saturday morning soccer. And I got a lot of lessons from him. We worked together on a bunch of different things. I served on the board and he was an advisor to the board. And He is just a tremendous guy. And for him, having coached at the high school with him, for him to get the state championship, if you guys please understood how important it is to him, and I know he's so proud, he's the proudest guy in the world right now. So I'm so proud of him.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you. All right, so I actually had no idea I was supposed to give a speech, so I'm going to actually do my best. Thanks for prepping me, Pete. It's much appreciated. First of all, just like Jeff, it's really important to acknowledge the people behind the scenes that make so many other things happen, so that us as coaches can just basically get on with taking care of our players and trying to coach the players as best as we can for that to be as competitive as we can. So really for the parents of certainly the captains on the varsity team and the booster club, you know, it goes without saying, you are an integral part for us to be as successful as what we have been this year. My assistant coach, Ray Marshall, who is up there somewhere in Costa Rica, probably having a crafty one at the bar. Ray and I have known each other a long time. I actually coached his son, who was one of my captains many years ago. And, you know, we've formed an incredible working relationship. So, you know, for both of us to be able to share the moments that we had this year was an incredible experience. With respects to the players, I'll be honest, it was somewhat unexpected. We kind of labored through the FCX season a little bit. We played some great games. We played some kind of okay games, and we played some poor games. We got into the FCX tournament, which we have done since I've coached 22 straight years, and high hopes of probably getting to the final, but we come up against a very good Trumbull team, and we didn't help ourselves with mistakes that we made, and pretty much kind of gift wrap them the trip to the final with our first half display. And really it came down to, well, what now for the postseason? And, you know, I got the group of players together and I said, well, you know, we're making far too many mistakes. So unless we fix something with the system that we're playing and with moving some players around, we're not going to go very far in the tournament. And when the draw came out, we looked at it, and it was not going to be an easy pathway to a final. We played the previous year's state champions in the first round and beat them on penalties. We played Trumbull again for the third time that season and beat them on penalties. We went to Newington, who were the 9th seed, and actually was the only game we won in regulation. Surprise, surprise. We then played Fairfield Prep, who were seeded higher than us, in the semi-finals and beat them on penalties. And then played Hall, who we had actually played in the season, and gave us a really good beating and beat them on penalties. So I've kind of done something that the English national team seems to struggle with, which is actually winning penalty shootouts. And, you know, I was on the end of my phone during the World Cup, ready in case Gareth Southgate needed to call me up, just in case he wanted some advice. But I have to hand it to these players. Honestly, the sacrifice that they made going into postseason with a system that we had very little time to practice, there's just their sheer desire, their work rate, their effort. It was absolutely tireless. And, you know, I couldn't have been prouder at the end when even when we got into overtime and then eventually into penalties and obviously beat a very, very good team. Proudest moment of my coaching career, without a doubt, with a group of players who did something that no other team for 61 years has done in Greenwich, which was to win a state championship. So, you know, I'm looking forward to the boys that are all coming back next year. And as Leo just said, it's time to get a 3rd star. So hopefully it won't take as long to do it, and we can try and get back and do it again next year. So I want to call up the players, or actually the players can stand up. The captains, Lucas, Gordy, Jamie, and Nick, who's not actually here. And then Jack, who unfortunately got injured during the season. But we got a nice medal for him at the end of it. Max, Tomas, Leon, Charlie, Mink, Nick, Nate, Mika, Matt, Thomas, Nick, Andre. Who else we got? Oh, and Javier. Just quickly about Javier. Javier didn't play much actually of the postseason. However, we're talking nerves of steel and just ice cold. He came up and took a penalty in the penalty shootout with not actually stepping on the field the entirety of that game. And when I looked at him and I said, "You've won a penalty, have you?" He said, "Give me the ball, coach. I'll go up number one." And that just says a lot about this squad of players, that no matter how much they played, they were willing to sacrifice themselves and then do the business when it needed it most. And I just wanted to shout out to Javier for that, because that was absolutely huge what you did in that final. So congratulations, boys.
And the third state championship team is the football team at Greenwich High School, coached by Anthony Morello.
I also had the pleasure of working a little bit with Coach Morello back when I was working at the school. And there are some things that we'd certainly like to point out. If you consider the COVID season, which we had to shut down, Coach Morello had actually won a state championship as the head coach fastest, or the fastest of any other coach in the history of Greenwich High School. So
Hey.
he did that in 3 years.
We'll take it. If my voice goes out, I lost it earlier in the week and I'm yet to find it. But I'm going to do my best to be as robotic as I can when I announce your name, so you don't get a squeak in the middle of it. Thank you for having us. Tony Jones, obviously Joe, we go way back. So thankful for all that you guys do for us. As a Greenwich Public Schools alum, I spent 13 years in Greenwich Public Schools. Was actually taken back when I walked in here today. I was in here, I think it was the year 2000. I saw Fiddler on the Roof, Central Middle School was performing. So I look back here and we are a long way from Anatevka. Looks like New York City perhaps, but it is, it's so great for me to be able to be a part of this for these guys. I know what it feels like to put everything you got into a state championship and come up short as a player. I was 0 for 4 as a player when it got to the playoffs. So for me personally, to be able to help you guys achieve your goals was really something that I'm going to cherish for the rest of my life. I'd like to congratulate the other teams and coaches that are here tonight. Quick story about Coach Putnam. Early in the season, we were having a lot of bus shortages happening all over the state, and we had a freshman game, road game. We have a big freshman team. It requires 2 buses, and only 1 bus showed up. Soccer also had an away game that day, and the game was penciled in a little later on in the evening. And Coach Putnam gave up the bus. Said, "Hey, coach, just take the bus and go." So the freshman team was able to arrive on time and play that game. And a big thanks to Coach for doing that. But I think, being here with all these teams and here with the town of Greenwich, it just goes to show that, all the teams working together can do great things. And it's not always the case. And it wasn't the case when I was growing up. And to have all of our coaches working in tandem for the betterment of student athletes is something that I know I'm really proud of and proud to come to work with. So, I just wanted to point that out, and thank you again for doing that. Next time it's going the other way, we'll have a bus to give to your guys. And I want to thank Pete for organizing this. I know in 2018, when we won a state championship, we didn't get to do, this event. I think it's a really special opportunity. So as far as this season goes, yeah, it was a really magical run. Football doesn't stop. And this team, the seniors now and the juniors, they lost the game in early December of 2021, and their season started the next day. They were working tirelessly January all the way through the summer with lifts 4 days a week, running programs, getting up at 6 a.m. for morning workouts all throughout the summer, and dedicating their time and their efforts towards a common goal. And they were able to achieve that goal. So kudos to you guys. Every day, that we're farther away, I get a little more excited about the day. So it's something that isn't like dissipating. It's continuing to grow. So hopefully you guys got hopefully you feel the same way, and hopefully you got more out of this program than just winning a state championship. Because if things didn't go our way, I sure hope that you'd still remember all the life lessons and goals that you learned and the friendships and bonds that you made. And those are ones that you'll carry on for a lifetime. Some of my closest friends now were guys that I played with in high school. So congrats. We have a lot of student athletes in our program, approximately 190 through all 4 levels. I'm not going to read 190 names tonight, but I do want to recognize the guys that are here and other contributors to our state championship run. So I'd like to start kind of in reverse order and open with our captains. So if I can have number 8, Matthew Trimmer, number 9, Dominic DeLuca, number 14, Jack Wilson, and number 76, Jake Kiernan, all stand up for me. And if we can just do an applause for these captains on their own, I think that would be awesome. You guys were exceptional the entirety of the journey. Tremendous leaders, tremendous vocal leaders on and off the field, and tremendous athletes too. A lot of multi-sport players and a lot of guys are going to be continuing their athletic career at the next level. So look forward to seeing how that pans out over the next few months, and can't wait to watch you guys on Saturdays in the upcoming years. If you guys can stay standing, I'm now going to announce the rest of the seniors. Wyatt Abernathy, and we can hold our applause till the end of this. Wyatt Abernathy, Peyton Eslonson, Ryan Bailey, Sergo Boone, Christian Brutus, Andre Castellanos, Michael Cipollone, Sean Cowie, Layart Deducci, Charlie Dixon, Kane Earhart, Drew Falla, Teddy Flynn, Danny Fox, Wyatt Gibson, Carl Grafassi, George Hernandez, Vincent Nsinga, Zachary Jacob, Jack Konigsberg, Michael Moeller, Miles Moore, Robert Pastor, Anthony Pedicano, Sander Tomasino, Neo Vigilante, Arian Wadwa, James Whalegum, Teddy Walsh. Senior class, 2023. For our juniors, Brandon August, Kyle Allen, Nick Aravides, David Baumgarten, Brendan Boone, Dylan Brem, Adorian Campbell, Antonio Ciccarelli, Chris Crooks, Alex Fluke, Tyler Fong, Griffin Galetta, Gavin Generelli, Nicholas Granito, Rocco Grillo, Mark Holtz, John Nsinga, Kiko Ivanov, Logan Joswiak, Ian Kim, Daniel Manuli, Ryan McBriarty, Yasir McGee, Johnny McHugh, Vincent Monick, Brian Nova, Ryan Park, Sebastian Para, Tommy Passamano, Eric Perino, Ignacy Pietrica, Kane Rama, James Rowena, Jaden Scott, John Saparis, David Varela, George Vamvalakis, George Weeksner, and Tommy Ibarra, our junior class. And sophomores, it looks like we have Chase Inesta, we have Max Merrick, we have Michael D'Angelo, we have Peter Vamvalakis. Our sophomores. Did I miss anybody that's present? Okay, great. Lastly, I'd like to thank my coaches. I'm fortunate to have probably one of the largest, but really the most talented group of guys that I've ever had a chance to work with. Some I was fortunate enough to inherit, and others I was able to meet and bring in, and this one was really shared by all of us. And these coaches, some of them live up in Bethel, up in Shelton and Derby, and they commute here 6 days a week in the fall to be with these guys, to make practice, to drive home in rush hour at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. at night, day after day after day, year after year after year. The commitment to them is unquestioned, and I wouldn't be standing here without them. So just want to give a thank you to all of them as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, we have some more recognitions, which once we have the recognitions, I know we have midterms, so I'd encourage the kids, though, the boys and girls to go home and study for their midterms. But I would like you to stay for the recognitions. Now we have the NAFME Student Songwriting Competition. Cue ice cream in the driveway, please. Ms. Friedman, come on up. Thank you.
Play the whole thing, no? Hey, thank you. That's great, man. That's good. Thank you. Hi, I'm Barbara Friedman. I've been teaching electronic music and composition and studio production at Greenwich High School since 2001. Started by Ann Meduno in 1969, GHS has the longest continually running music technology program in the United States and possibly the world. Today, music technology classes such as the GHS program are offered in tens of thousands of schools all over the world. Along with my teaching partner, Jason Polis, we provide musical arts, humanities, and STEM learning and credits to over 300 students every year, making the GHS program one of the largest in the country. This year, almost 30% of the seniors in our program will go on to college to major in music, composition, audio engineering, music production, or music industry and business. We hope that they and others will be joining the long list of GHS graduates who are vibrant professionals and well-known artists in the $50 billion a year music and communications industry.
Hi there. The GHS Music Department is very proud to congratulate Yuta Takahashi, selected as the winner in the category grades 9 through 12 for the 2022 National Association for Music Education, NAFME, Student Songwriters Competition. Yuta was a sophomore and a student in GHS electronic music songwriting and recording class last year with myself and Barbara Friedman as teachers. We co-teach the class. When he submitted the piece to the competition, Yuta is also in the GHS Honors Chamber Singers. Patrick Taylor is the director, and he is an exceptional GHS student academically as well. Yuta is a multi-instrumentalist and a vocalist. He plays more instruments than I even know now. He played and sang literally everything on the piece you just heard, titled Ice Cream in the Driveway, that won the national competition. We are so very, very proud of all of Yuta's accomplishments. Thank you.
Yuta, where are you, man? Yeah. Come on up, man. Take a bow. Give it up for Yuta. Thanks, man. Nicely done. Take a bow. Take a bow for your crowd. By the way, I just want to give a shout out to Yuta's parents and to all the parents who are here supporting your young people, because without you, the parents, they really wouldn't have the accomplishments that they have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
For having.
We've had my kids, you know that, right?
I did?
Yes.
Did they pass?
No. Of course they did. Thank you. That's awesome. Now we have the NAMM Foundation 2022 Best Community for Music Education Award. Tony, that's you, right?
It
Dr.
is.
Jones.
Sorry. Thank you. We're here tonight and we've invited Laura Newell to join us. I think we all know that we have one of the best music education programs in the country, but it's wonderful when an outside organization agrees with us. And I'm so glad you went right before Laura, because I know, Laura, you work so hard with all of your staff, and our music program is phenomenal. And you can't have a great program without a great leader. And I know somebody mentioned COVID earlier tonight. Your program had so many impacts during COVID, just like our athletic programs, and you powered through it. And you kept your music program strong without losing a beat. And we were just talking, I was talking to some people that are going to be in the Eastern musical before tonight, and we haven't missed a beat. And it's very much because of you, and also the wonderful people that you hire and that you lead. So if you'd like to come forward and say a few words, we'd love to have you.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I'm just going to be very brief, but I want to make sure that you understand while it's brief. When I talk about my teachers, they are the best in this world. They are some of the most accomplished musicians I've ever worked with. I've moved around from all over the state, and I have to tell you that your kids are in great hands. They are compassionate with your children. They focus on like honing their craft every single day. Not only do they teach music, they also support your child socially and emotionally. I see so many kids in the band room, in the chorus rooms, in the orchestra rooms, just being together and building a music community. That's what our role is. Not only to just make them outstanding musicians, but to build a community of music. So when they go off into the world, they're singing to their children, they're listening to the radio, they're listening to Utah's composition. And I couldn't say anything more. They are just amazing, amazing individuals. And when you see a music teacher that you've come across, kids, in all the years here, please say thank you. They put in countless hours before school, after school, to make sure our program is the best. Thank you.
Hold on. Okay, now we have the National Merit Scholarship Program honorees. Miss Ianello. There you are.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Board of Education and Dr. Jones for allowing us this opportunity to honor some outstanding students this evening. The National Merit Scholarship Corporation honors students every year based on their college board scores on the PSATs. And just to give you an idea of how exceptional our students are, the first group of students that I'm going to recognize tonight are our commended students. Sorry. And these students are part of only the top 3 or 4% nationally. So that's an incredible accomplishment for them academically. Our National Merit semifinalists are part of a 1% of the top in our country. So we have a lot to be proud of and thankful for to all the work that you've done. So the first group of students I would like to recognize tonight are our commended students. There are 36 of them. So as I read your name, I'll ask you to please remain standing. I need to lift this up. This happens to tall people. Sorry. Sorry. So I'll ask you to stand up and remain standing until the end. And if you could please hold your applause. I will say I've been here for 4 months, so I apologize ahead of time if I do not pronounce your name correctly, so please forgive me. Isabel Benison, Nicholas Carlson, Stephanie Chang, Nina Clark, Douglas Dozier, Madeline Duff, Michelle Ferrone, CCG, Dylan Germain, Matteo Giuliani Alcantrell, Nicholas Giuliani Alcantrell, apologize, Gaston Gomez, Ambika Grover, Whitaker Grover, Audrey Hall, Avery Imp, Kai Jane, Nathan Joy, Noah Kim, Adam Klasharsky, Victoria Liu, Marcus Latufo, Archer Manning, Charles Miranda, Nicole Orlowski, Alexander Palmer, Maxwell Rabe, Yukira Saki, Alan Shu, Christine Song, Jane Steppine, Benjamin Sullivan, Ann Suzuki, Kevin Topelt, Alexander Tu, and Kira Young. So again, these students scored in the top 3 to 4% nationally. So congratulations. So the next group of students are juniors this year. We have 11 of these students. You heard me call quite a few names. Our commended students, we had 36 of them. And I'm just blown away by the level of achievement that our students regularly show in this school, and we have a lot to be proud of. Our national semifinalists for this year for the 2023, our first national semifinalist is Sophie Citron. Yay. Teresa Dobbins, Alexander Akiko. Sorry, I didn't say that right. Arjun Kishore, Lauren Coaster, Luke Mazzullo, Joaquina Mande, Laura Nugan, Emil Schoenberg, Harry Waters, and Brandon Yu. Congratulations, you guys are all amazing.
Well, that's great. We got some smart kids. That's way cool. And one more thing that I'd like you students to hang around for is to hear from your student government. So if I can have, I believe we start with the student body vice president, Mitch Goldstein. Mitch, you are a friend of my daughter. She says you're a wonderful kid. We have not had a chance to really spend time together yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that going forward at the school. How you doing, Mitch? Good? Oh, thank you.
And I like the new setup we have here. We get to talk to everyone at the meeting. So good morning, good evening, board members and meeting attendees. My name is Mitch Goldstein, and I'm the student body vice president this year. I want to start by congratulating all of the students on their achievement this year. It's great to see just how much high-level work is being done, both in the classrooms and on the fields at GHS. This week, students are completing their midterm exams, and as we look into the second semester, the Office of Student Activities and a few student clubs are hosting a Super Bowl food drive leading up to the Super Bowl. All students have been asked to bring in cans of soup, which will then be donated to Neighbor to Neighbor. On the note of food, the Diversity and Food Services Subcommittee have planned a chef's table event with executive chef Nico to celebrate the Chinese New Year. Later this month, students will be able to get food that connects to the Chinese New Year. This is the first event in a series of events that aims to bring a more diverse food options to Greenwich High School. And with this addition, the student government aims to provide a more diverse and representative menu. Earlier this month, the student government sent out a survey during advisories to try to determine the most pressing issues at GHS. We were thrilled to receive over 1,200 responses. The most common concern was related to midterm weighting, which has been addressed thanks to Mr. Mayo and the administrative team at GHS. The next priority was student-centered trash, followed by proper utilization of flex time, and finally, GPA weighting and college preparation. Going forward, the student government will continue to work with administration and with students to address these issues. I would also like to address the new courses that are being introduced tonight. I want to say that GHS students support the addition of the Guitar 2 class and especially the addition of an honors linear algebra class to GHS. More high-level classes will allow students to expand their knowledge in a larger variety of academic areas. On behalf of the student body, I want to thank you all for your time, and I look forward to continuing to work with the board as we begin the year. I now pass the microphone over to Student Body President Isabella Gaga.
Isabella, you stood out a lot when we knew you in middle school, and your personality is overwhelming and great, so please.
Welcome, everyone. I know this is probably the first time for a lot of you, so I'm Isabella Gaga, your student body president at Greenwich High School. Good evening, Chairman Kelly, Dr. Jones, members of the board, and meeting attendees. Happy New Year. I want to start off by congratulating Mr. Kelly on his newly elected position as chair. And to Ms. Stowe, we want to thank you for your leadership on the board and your support of the students. We are so excited to work with the both of you and the rest of the board for the rest of 2023. As XCOM and student government representatives head into 2023, we have been reflecting on the past year and set goals for the second semester. Each class at GHS aims to host one class-specific event, and our subcommittees will foster a collaborative environment to brainstorm ideas to continue improving our school. We hope to see a large turnout at student events and are optimistic for the next half of the school year. Beyond this, Greenwich High School students are currently deep into the midterm process. Although this is time of stress, teachers have been accommodated students' needs, and we are incredibly appreciative. Administrators have been highly receptive to student feedback, implementing mandatory review packets, a review day prior to exams, and a choice between 5% and 10% weighting for midterms for full year courses. During these times of stress, though, we as students turn to Ms. Foster, our Director of Student Activities, to put a smile on everyone's face as she coordinates a Semester 2 Spirit Week kickoff starting February 6th. Filled with fun events, exciting dress-up themes, and entertaining activities during lunch, we are excited for the end of midterms and a fresh start of Semester 2. I am hopeful for the future to come, and I look forward to speaking with you all once again next month. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Lil, I'm sorry, I'm going to release the students to go home and study for their midterms because that's the priority. Lil, I know you love an audience, but we're going to have to break up this audience a little bit because it is midterm season.
While everybody's heading out, I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that tonight we honored students who are in the disciplines of athletics, academics, and the arts, which is pretty impressive, I just have to say. So congratulations to all of our students.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. And now introducing Lil Perone. Come on up, Lil.
Whoa, right lights.
Not coming at us out of the dark anymore.
Whoa, where's my sunglasses?
You can hold up.
Yeah, wait. Like the music, Mark and I could have danced down together. This is my speech, that's all. All right, well, good evening, everyone. I'm Lillian Perone, the proud president of the Greenwich Education Association. First of all, I love this setup. I can look at the people and nothing personal, not at you guys. And Joe, you're right within arm's reach of me. You just felt the energy as I was standing back there, watching all the awards. It's really a blessing and just so exciting, just to have the acknowledgement of so many students and coaches and staff and teachers and just the gratefulness of thanking and have the opportunities to share their wins. You know, it's so exciting standing on the field and hearing the national anthem. I've been there at the college level, and it's really exciting for the coaches and players here today. And thank you to Laura, who also praised the teachers, not only students and administration, but our teachers do work hard. So many teachers are out there during COVID, there for the students. They all work hard. Thank you to my friend Pete Georgiou, who's here. He's doing a great job, great guy. And to my PE and health staff that's also here, Kathy and Chris, and all the other administration that I see. Hi, Daisy. See there. So thank you all. It's great that we have a commonality, that we can celebrate success within this great district. So thank you to our parents too. Now to the not more exciting stuff, but you know. All right, so thank you, Mark. Oh, there you go, right there. Thank you, Mark, and the coordinators for the STEM presentation. I thought was quite interesting. K-8 STEM report with the data points. Some things that I'm interested in hoping to learn from future presentations and conversations. Looking at the K-8 math SBA mastery grades 3-8 student achievement trends for years 2019 through 22. Very interested in hearing the story behind the numbers. Sometimes you can't just look at numbers. You have to look at, there's always a hidden story behind some of the data. One thing I thought was very interesting, especially grades 3 and 4, because when I look at the gray highlighted area, which is 2019 pre-COVID results, which might be a benchmark and true indicator of where students are, then you compare it to the 2021 COVID scores, you see the data representing learning loss. And as I go to my state meetings, it's all districts are experiencing this learning loss. And, you know, we're having discussions on sharing strategies and ideas like how do we, in different, you know, curricular areas, how just are they handling this? What's more interesting, though, is that in the third year trend in 2002, a couple of grades 3 surpassed the pre-COVID year scores and got to the 75 target. Not only got to the target, but the 78% went up to 78%.
And while grade 4 also improved target goals also in 2022 of 75%. Now, if this is for third grade, what I don't know is it a cohort trend, or are those third graders, they were first graders and second graders, and now they're third graders, and that's the score when they were third graders. So I'm interested on hearing that. I also observed the same data trends for the NGSS science achievement trends for 8th grade. And I know that we will probably, as a district, take a deep dive into what and how was done in these 2 grade levels with the cohort study trend, and share the knowledge and skills and incorporate the best practices so that across all grade levels and all schools, we can incorporate the same strategy and best practices to hopefully achieve that for all our students here in Greenwich. One thing I'd like to also talk about is the initiative of the State Board of Education, newly initiated CT SEDS program. Talking at the state level again, it was a program that probably had a lot of kinks that really needed to be worked out before it was introduced to the school system. And the state probably, and they know that, we've already talked to them at the state level, Kate Diaz, CA president. A lot of glitches. And again, straight through Connecticut, not just the Greenwich problem. It's hitting every school, the same things on tweaking. It's very frustrating for every school system. It's very frustrating for the teachers with programs that put you in a place. Many times with glitches, you have to report and wait for the fixes. It is getting better. But sometimes we have to think about the positive. I try and tell teachers, think about the positive things, that when sometimes you have to put the work in to front load it, and that when all is said and done, we're suffering now throughout the state and throughout the district. We'll all have common language, common things, and in the end, it'll be better. So you have to keep your eyes on the prize sometimes when you're stumbling. One thing I asked the board to consider and our cabinet is there's still lots of work to be done. Teachers need time. Our special education and PPS staff have been working very hard and long hours. We need to be cognizant, especially with new initiatives. We need to be thoughtful and pace them and provide support, provide training support. And the common theme for teachers throughout the district that I'm hearing is that they need more time, need more collaboration time. And in the end, I think we'll reap the rewards of that collaboration. So to end that, I look forward to collaborating with the GPS cabinet and how we can provide teachers with more time and collaborative opportunities. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Lil. And let's hear from PTAC now. It's Frances Wunobe. Is she? Oh, there you are. Fantastic. You made it. That's wonderful. Myself and Frances have had some nice conversations over the last couple of weeks.
Ooh, right.
Good evening. I'm Frances Wunobe, mom of 3 GPS kids and the 2022-2023 president of the Greenwich Parent-Teacher Advisory Council. I'll start tonight's remarks channeling my mom with a traditional Japanese New Year's greeting. 明けましておめでとうございます。昨年は大変お世話になり、誠にありがとうございました。本年もどうぞよろしくお願いいたします。皆様の健康とご多幸をお祈り申し上げます。Which means, Happy New Year. Sincere thanks for all your care and consideration last year. Looking forward to your continued support in 2023. Wishing all of you good health and happiness. PTAC is a nonpartisan, non-political organization made up of a governing board of directors, presidents of all 15 school PTAs, and 17 powerhouse advisory committees covering academics, buildings, curriculum enrichment, and more. If you're ready to be more engaged in our schools, please join your school PTA today. And nominating for the 2023-2024 PTAC slate is also now open. Turning to hot topics and tonight's consent agenda, PTAC highlights these ABCs for the Board of Education consideration. A, for academics. PTAC is extremely interested in tonight's report out and discussion regarding K-12 STEM. In science, PTAC is pleased to see strong district results against the NGSS standards. Keep it up. And congratulations to our Regeneron scholars and newest middle school innovators. But in math, our math scores need work just to hit the state of Connecticut's 70% goal. And we have to get to 70% before we can set our sights on the Board of Education's 80th percentile math mastery goal. There's work to do. We, parents, teachers, and the community want to see results that reflect math confidence, math literacy, and math joy. We want to see our students see that math is magical, magnificent, and mandatory. We all know the working world demands strong math skills, whether you become an astronaut, a banker, chef, dancer, or zookeeper. We see the disparity between our schools. So how do we lift all district schools to the target? We look to the district and the Board of Education to identify clear, actionable steps we can all take to work towards hitting these important targets. B is for budgets. PTAC looks forward to Tuesday's BET Budget Committee meeting to approve the BOE's operating capital budgets. Parent, teacher, student, and administrator input went into these plans to ensure our academics stay strong, our buildings stand up, and our school district supports all our student needs. C is for community. PTAC appreciates the vocal bipartisan partnership for the Western Middle School fields, the continued support for Central Middle School and Old Greenwich School. PTAC was very pleased to welcome new BOE Chair Joe Kelly to our January 2023 PTAC monthly meeting. Joe welcomed our input and encouraged all to come together for our students. On February 3rd at 11 a.m., PTAC welcomes the Greenwich United Way to share their efforts towards adolescent mental health. Please visit the Greenwich PTAC website for Zoom details and prior recordings. To end where we started, I wish all those celebrating Lunar New Year on Sunday, channeling my dad this time, Shinran Kuai-le. Happy Year of the Rabbit. We look forward to working together in 2023, and to all our Greenwich High School students honored tonight, well done and best wishes for your midterms. And thank you, as always, to our Greenwich Public School teachers.
Domo arigato gomaste. I'll have the speakers here. Okay, now it's time for public comments. We'll start with Jackie Homan. Jackie, are you here or online?
Hi there. Hi there.
Hi, Jackie.
Good evening, Board of Education members and Dr. Jones. I took an opportunity to review the Greenwich Together survey that you plan on administering to children in grades 7 through 12. And the survey says it's about positive things that you might have in yourself, your family, and your friends, as well as about substance abuse and other risky behaviors. The questions start off innocent at first, but then students are asked intrusive questions about parents' attitudes and behaviors around drugs and alcohol, for instance. They're asked if they've ever tried a long list of substances like ecstasy, crack, PCP, heroin, fentanyl. Younger students who took this survey last year, particularly the 12 and 13-year-olds, indicated that the survey is actually what introduced them to many of these drugs in the first place. It's what inspired them to learn more about these substances, since it seemed like from the survey that everyone was doing it. So presumably, this is the opposite of what the survey's intentions are. Some of the questions on the survey feel suggestive, like how easy or hard would it be for you to get these substances if you wanted them? Students are told the survey is anonymous, but anything online, is it ever really anonymous? And who else gets access to the data once the survey is completed? Is this data sold to any third parties? And
Speaking of selling data to third parties, I would like to reiterate my concern about Yale's social emotional learning program, Ruler, since I see that the ARP ESSER 3 budget is on the agenda tonight too. This program teaches children to use a mood meter to track their emotions. How is that data used? And what third parties have access to that data? Will students with undesirable moods be referred to the guidance counselor or sent for a mental health diagnosis? And how does this intense focus on moods and emotions instead of academics help with learning loss? Of course, the social emotional learning curriculum was never approved by you, the Board of Education, as required by state education law. Yet that fact doesn't seem to be slowing down or stopping the implementation of this controversial curriculum that is rooted in New Age occult spirituality. Whatever happened to the separation of church and state? And we seem to be learning more and more every day about how social emotional learning is being used as a Trojan horse to deliver critical race theory and gender ideology lessons to children. And as a matter of fact, that was the exact subject of the latest Project Veritas investigation that just broke this week, which
30 seconds.
reminds me, can you pretty please give the community an update on the 5 different investigations into the former COSCOP assistant principal? It's been a very long time. And also, can you please give parents an update on the status of some of the controversial books that have been brought to your attention? Thank you so much for addressing these issues, and it's good to see everyone for the new year.
Why, thank you, Jackie. Katie, you. We'll see if we go back to her. Okay, that'd be great. Phil Browse, come on up, Phil.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Phil Browse, local in town. Thank you all for allowing me to speak at your meeting. I have an idea that I'd like to share with you all. We all have seen or heard of the drug fentanyl. It's on the news every day. Well, as you know, it's sadly taking our families and friends' lives in all towns across America. Here in Connecticut, we have 3 drug-related deaths every day. The Greenwich Police Department just arrested 2 people with 2 kilos of fentanyl, enough to kill 1 million people. 2 kilos, quite a bit. From 2012 to 2021, the increase in deaths from fentanyl is 327%. That's in Connecticut. That's a staggering stat. We must do something to stop this. Our families deserve a way to fight back, and Narcan kits are one way that is directly able to save a life when it's immediately needed. Sorry, 75% of those deaths occurred within our homes. 60% of the deaths were from fentanyl. This is local stuff. This is not somewhere else in the middle of the country. We must do something to help. We can no longer, in my opinion, just talk about it. We must take action to help those in need. This isn't just our kids, it's our fathers, our mothers, and family friends. We must do something. What I'm hoping we can do is open up a discussion on how to empower our Greenwich families to fight this horrible invasion of fentanyl. I can name 3 friends' sons that have passed away from this drug in town, and that is way too many. And those are the only ones that I know about. There are many more, I'm sure, unfortunately. What I'm proposing for us to consider is the thought of placing a Narcan kit in every medicine cabinet in our town for every high school student in our town. This is possible with your help and ideas on how to do this. The town of Greenwich is receiving $24,000 a year to combat drugs from Johnson & Johnson's settlement. Let us use some of these funds to purchase these kits and distribute them to our families in town. Many of us have college-age students that have returned home, and they run the risk too of using fentanyl, not forgetting to mention the parents, as they also might be.
30 seconds.
Nobody can see fentanyl as it's hidden and can only be detected by fentanyl strips. that are also available. But until we make these strips available, we all need some way of helping the souls that have been given a drug they might not have intended to use. What I envision is an Narcan kit in every medicine cabinet and every high school family's medicine cabinet. Did I say that twice? Available at a moment's notice should they arise for someone in your family.
Time.
It takes only micrograms of this highly toxic drug to kill. Sadly, our families are still taking these drugs that are fake and made with fentanyl. Marijuana has also been the other drug that has been infected or infused with this drug. Sadly, our kids use this too, and it's too late after the fact. Narcan saves lives. Let's try to have one kit per family in the medicine cabinet and give these families a chance to save a life. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. That should hopefully start a discussion. It's controversial, but we certainly want to start a discussion with that. So thank you. Julie Deschamps. There's Julie. All right.
Good evening. I'm Julie Deschamps, the chair of Waste Free Greenwich, and I've been working with Angie Hartofilis and the PTAC Green Schools Committee on the Zero Waste Schools program for the district. After years of advocating for waste reduction in our schools, we now have a strong program in place and the procedure to bolster it by updating regulation 3513.1R, which spells out the rationale for the program, materials to be diverted, and roles and responsibilities of stakeholders. In particular, we're grateful to Chair Joe Kelly for his staunch advocacy and his time and advice to navigate us through the process, and Vice Chair Christina Downey for her instruction and guidance. And thanks to Cody Kittle for our lively discussion and his encouragement. Superintendent Jones, we are deeply appreciative of your thoughtful review of the regulation and the amendments to make the program more effective and sustainable in the future. We would like to recognize Blaise Leviton for his responsiveness and excellent advice, as well as Dan Watson, Mark Bria, and Dave Nanarello for their support. We are indebted to the building principals, custodians, lunch monitors, teachers, and volunteers who have helped along the way. This is certainly a team effort. We have now rolled out the cafeteria waste program at 4 schools: New Lebanon, Old Greenwich, Central Middle School, and ISD, and will shortly launch at Eastern Middle and Parkway. The program has cut recycling contamination significantly and achieved a 41 to 49% diversion of waste through educational training and new sorting stations. I'm thrilled to report that just this week, we introduced the food scrap recycling pilot at New Lebanon. Students now separate all food scraps in a designated bin, and food services also contributes food scraps from the kitchen. This organic material is transported by a hauler at no cost to the district to a licensed facility to be processed into compost. Each day, an average of 35 pounds of food waste is diverted from the cafeteria waste stream. By segregating food scraps, the overall diversion rate has jumped from 42% to 76% by weight. Now an average 67 pounds daily, or a prospective 12,000
30 seconds.
pounds annually of cafeteria waste are no longer burned as trash at a cost to this town, but are instead converted to compost, recycled into new products, or diverted to drains to water treatment plants. Today, we had a spirited discussion about littering, waste disposal, and science of composting, and one third grader concluded, the process is gross, but it's good for the plants. The organics pilot and waste reduction program promise benefits to our budget, public health, and the environment, and teaches our children the value of environmental stewardship and civic responsibility. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I'll follow through with that. Julie's work is all volunteer with her crew, with her group, and she's gone and put a tremendous amount of work in, and at no cost to Greenwich Public Schools. Katie, are you there?
Miss Yu, you should be able to speak.
We'll return to Katie.
Hello, hello.
There's Katie.
Hi, I'm sorry, I didn't see the screen pop up. I apologize. I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now and go ahead.
Super. Thank you so much. And my apologies again. Good evening. I will be brief. Really just wanted to state, it's been just a really good night for my family. And I really wanted to start with a message of thanks to the many teachers who we feel stand beside our son and who stood behind our son tonight in support to help him achieve this honor tonight. And looking forward, I really just wanted to express my excitement about the proposal tonight to add linear algebra as a course option at the high school, as well as the AP pre-calculus class. I am truly excited and heartened by this decision to offer these advanced level courses to a growing number of students who will seek to take these in a few years when they are at GHS. I applaud the math department for seeing the importance of having direct discourse among like-minded peers. This is something that my son truly enjoyed in classes such as Miss Francella's advanced calculus class, and something that he really missed in independent study. Just a couple of really quick thoughts. Currently, the MIT freeware linear algebra course is typically completed in 6 months. And I believe that this is something that is also common in some colleges. So I would be curious to know what the length of the class would be. And also, since this is likely going to be a class for seniors, how might this affect the AP statistics enrollment? Is it possible to consider allowing students to possibly even take this course during the summer to allow the opportunity for students to take linear algebra in their senior year? That's all I had to say, and thank you very much again. Good night.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. And next is Christine Rebstock. Christine, are you online?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Christine Rebstock. I'm a transsexual woman. I'm speaking out against social emotional learning, which introduces gender ideology, especially with the elementary and middle school kids, as this leads down a slippery slope. These kids will think that being trans is cool or a fad. It's not. Gender dysphoria is very real, and it's very tough to live with. I'm one of the 40% of trans people that attempted suicide. And in our state, because of state statute 19A-14C that allows mental health professionals to treat minor age kids without parental knowledge or consent, we've seen kids, such little girls could go to a school teacher or official and say, I'm really a boy inside me. And we're seeing these kids be put on puberty blockers, hormone replacement therapy, and have been given life-altering surgeries. This is wrong. This is child abuse. I've been on hormone replacement therapy for 3 years and faced a cancer scare. If this could happen to me, this could happen to one of our kids. This has to stop. I'm not an anti-LGBTQ kid. I want to help them. And this starts from the home, with their families, doctors, and therapists. It involves no medical transition. We could teach anyone. We don't need curriculum to teach kids that everyone's different. Let's be kind and respectful for everybody. Thank you for letting me speak. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Christine. Kathleen Steiner.
Hello, Chris Hernandez and I, we're happy to be here. Thank you, Dr. Jones, and thank you, the board. We're here from the GHS Health and Safety Education Department and Physical Education Department as health and PE teachers. And we're here to defend and support our aquatics and water safety program that was recently removed from our curriculum. According to the National Safe Kids Campaign and the National Safety Council, approximately 830 children drown in the US annually. And in diverse communities, minorities are 3 times more likely to drown than their non-minority peers. We often take for granted that everyone knows how to swim and survive in the water. However, this is a false notion. The reality is not everyone has the resources to learn, whether that be financial, time, or ability. As a shoreline community, we have a responsibility to teach all of our students the basics of swimming, how to be safe in and around the water, and what to do in case of a water emergency. Greenwich High School's aquatic and water safety program has been praised by the Zach Foundation and the Drowning Prevention Foundation and has been a fundamental PE course in our 9th grade curriculum for the past 45 plus years. Statistics have shown that increasing children's access to swimming lessons, teaching water safety in schools, and providing parents with tools to talk with their children about how to be safe in and around the water can have a huge impact on reducing drowning rates. Our aquatics and water safety course closes the achievement gap because it provides basic swimming and life-saving water skills to all of our students, regardless of academic ability. Whether we are at a pool party, at Todd's Point, on our sailboat, motorboat, or jet skis, having the knowledge and skills to swim and survive in the water allows us to have fun with our family and friends, but also could be life-saving. Unlike other subjects, the PE and Health and Safety Education Department sees all students in grades 9 through 12 each year. Greenwich High School has always been a trailblazer in the state of Connecticut. Instead of doing away with this vital course, we urge you to instead look to personalize the experience for our students. Let's continue to set high standards and raise the bar. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm late to that discussion, but I've gotten a couple of calls about it, so there will be some further discussions about that amongst us. At least I will have discussions about it. Next is the superintendent's report. Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Chair Kelly.
Thank you.
It just didn't seem like it was on. Just a couple of items tonight. I think, first of all, I want to acknowledge, I think most of you saw in the paper, Angie Bramonti, who was now named to the Connecticut Academy of Science and Engineering. And I think we'll see him again at the end of the year to thank him in person when we see all of these wonderful research projects that the students do. And most of us can't understand what they're talking about because it's at such a high level. So congratulations to Mr. Bramonti. And I also want to just point out, and they did mention it in the paper, that we also now have this program in 8th grade, again, leading the country in science research. And I think you heard tonight, we're leading the country in lots of areas. We have a lot to be proud and celebrate. I also want to just congratulate Riverside, their musical Pippin. And, you know, when you look at what we do, and I know we recognized our musicians tonight, but our elementary productions look like middle school and even some high schools across the country. And by the time you get to high school, they just look professional. So congratulations to all of our musicians. Eastern will have their musical coming up. I know the board has a new document that we're trying to share all those dates, but be sure that you let us know if you're going to attend because they will sell out with all their tickets. All the seats will be gone. Battle of the Books for our elementary. This is something that they do every single year. It's a big competition, and this will be one of our first big events where we're able to use actually the Greenwich new auditorium, Greenwich Library. So excited about that. Midterms, I think, you know, again, I think I'm hearing great things. Students were very much appreciative of the administration and the adjustment that they made. And some of them reached out just to say thank you. And then a big reminder, first of all, that the budget hearing is next Tuesday night. I've had a lot of PTA, you know, reach out trying to understand which date is what happens. And Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock, the first selectman will present the town budget, operating and capital, and then the Board of Ed, we will be presenting the operating and the capital, and then it's the actual public hearing. And so we'll have some documents tomorrow in our Friday note that will help parents know how they can either send comments in writing to the BET or how they can make live comments. We also were asked by our PTA to be sure and give them information on Central, for instance, because there's been a lot of confusion. And so I know the board today saw a copy of a Q&A, and thanks to Laura Costin for getting that started. And so we've got a Q&A, and there's also a one-page fact sheet that I think is going to be really helpful for the community as a whole. And last but not least, just thank you to everybody that showed up for the Western Middle School soil remediation public hearing last week. We packed the house and online. And as one of the regulators was leaving, he made the comment that he'd, been doing this work for about a decade, just around 10 or so years. And that just on this one project, he had more community comment and participation than he had in the previous 10 years on all of his projects. So we should be very proud of that as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Laura?
Could I come back to the aquatics now, or should we do that later?
We could talk about that now if you like.
So just a question. I have two high schoolers that have dreaded the aquatics class because it is the most awkward time to be in a swimsuit with your peers. So I just wondered if we ever considered a test out option so that there would be a way for kids who needed the aquatics program to have it, and that kids who didn't need that kind of instruction could use that instructional time to take a different class and not one that they didn't really need to take.
And I think that that's some conversation that we've had. We can certainly continue it. We are not eliminating the aquatics course. So I want to make sure that you know that. I did email the board, I think a week or two ago about this. It's still available, but it's a choice for students and families. And I will be very honest, I really think ninth grade's too late to be introducing students to swimming. And there's a program that the YMCA actually runs, and it's aimed at second grade. And that's where I really think for an assured experience working with the Y, we need to start when they're younger. Now, I will tell you, I had a PE teacher, somebody that knows the program, said that they believe the number is probably about 90% of our kids come in already knowing how to swim. So it's really that 10% that we really want to target and encourage families and students to take the aquatics course. But I'm also hoping we'll continue in the high school to expand our offerings. I mean, I would love to see us doing water aerobics. I'd love to see us having lap swimming for students who really want to develop lifetime fitness. I think there's so many opportunities. And I will say, I think there's a lot of support for the approach that we're taking. We are in a time where when you talk about how young people feel about their bodies, there are young people who are very uncomfortable in that class. And I had somebody ask me, well, couldn't you offer it by gender? In 2023, no, we really could not without being in an Office of Civil Rights situation. And so that's just, we don't do that anymore. And there are several court cases, even when you look at mathematics and gender. So those have been settled, and we know that. As far as testing out, I will tell you, I had a great conversation with a group of parents. They were actually the Eastern parents who were at a PTA meeting, and they were asking about that. I would support that if we wanted to test out. It's not easy to implement, but in the month of June, taking busload of students over, letting them swim across the pool, I would be happy to do that. That's not where we are right now. That's not the recommendation. But certainly if we wanted to go in that direction, that's something we could do. But my goal is really to offer swimming earlier in their life so that we know our youngest students really know how to swim.
Kathleen?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I agree with you, Laura. I think it's very important that you noted that it's still available, but it's not mandatory. And I wholeheartely support it not being mandatory, because I do think it wasn't a good use of my child's time either. However, the testing out option is important. I know that I had to do that at Notre Dame. In order to graduate Notre Dame, you have to prove you can swim. And so, and I believe Cornell has the same program. Yes. So, I think it's an interesting option to take it that way. Thank you.
Karen?
Well, on the same topic, I would say I also fully support making it optional. This is something even before COVID, I had been asking for. It's not a state requirement, just happens to be, we happen to have a pool. But I also understand that, the need for life safety courses is exceptionally important, especially in this day and age. I do love the option I had suggested years ago about testing out and offering other options, life safety courses for our students. And I just wanted to see, when this decision was made, like I said, I don't know if there was a discussion at the high school or with any of the, educators as to what other options we might be able to offer just for students in some of the more unique and creative types of PE courses, because I'd love to be able to have that discussion going forward. As you saw, a lot of athletes were here tonight being honored, but not every student's an athlete, and it's a nice opportunity to offer some new types of courses for them if they're going to not have that as a credit option.
I have a close and trusted friend, Steve Lapham, who was one of the original designers of this program, I understand, and he contacted me the other day. He was kind enough to share a story. Now, he said, it's not a swimming class. It's not a class only to teach people how to swim. It's a class that teaches people or kids in a coastal community how to react to dangerous situations. He had said that, if somebody falls in the water from a dock or on the beach, and how do you approach that? If we do a lot of boating in our community, how do you address somebody falling overboard? How do you approach that? He said the course, I've never taken the course, but he says the course addresses all these things. He tells of a couple of years ago, some students, ex-students had come back to him, one specific, and said, Coach Lapham, or Steve, or whoever they called him at that stage, he said, our boat, one time on the Long Island Sound, we were way far away from shore, we anchored, and we decided to go swimming. And the boat lost the anchor, and the boat drifted away, and they couldn't catch up to the boat because the current was too strong. He was with the student, the Greenwich student who had gone through this course, was with two other kids, or two other people. Well, they were adults at that point. And the two others started to panic. And the student, or former student, had expressed to Steve Lapham that it was because of the training he received in this course that he was able to calm the two other kids down. And hours later, they were rescued. And he thanked Steve for teaching him those skills in that course. So I think we have to hear from the people who teach that course, the teachers who have been involved in this, the ones who have seen the generations of kids go through and come back and maybe share some of the stories. So at least let's bring the discussion to those who have the boots on the ground for us on this, so we can have that thorough discussion if we decide to go with some of the recommendations that the board members make. Well, let's make sure we have the complete discussion before we do that. Cody.
Do we offer any, or do we require people to take a class for driving before they graduate? No safety driving class. Do we require them to learn the Heimlich maneuver before they graduate?
They do take it in middle and high school.
It's in a class and they get tested on it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. I guess the point I was going to get at is you can mandate any sort of safety class for something. And if thousands and thousands of people go through the school, presumably at some point it will benefit someone. Driving is much more dangerous than swimming for teenagers, at least in terms of fatalities. If the principle is we're going to require classes that could potentially save a life over decades, then we have better places to look. But if that isn't the principle, which I don't think it should be, it seems silly to require something that I remember when I was at the high school, and actually I was very lucky. I only heard people complain about it because I went there in 10th grade. The idea of forcing people on the swim team to take a swimming class seems insane to me. So I think if we want to go the route of, proactively coming up with classes to prevent any harm from ever happening, we can look at other classes. But otherwise, I think we should proceed with the way you guys set it up.
Laura?
I just would wonder if there was also a CPR or, is there a CPR component in the water safety class in the aquatics?
We're delivering babies. You never know if you're going to be somewhere and someone goes into labor.
Good point.
Well, we don't offer a GEMS course, right? We do? Okay.
As a requirement.
Well, I say we can conclude the aquatics discussion saying further discussion is necessary. So let's continue to talk about it. Thank you. Any more questions? Karen, you have a question over the aquatics, or are you ready to move on to another question for the superintendent's report?
I'm ready to move on to something else. But I do have a question, but not on aquatics.
Well, we're done with aquatics. So-
Okay, great.
Okay, your turn. Go ahead.
My question relates to the change in the weighting with respect to the midterms. I just want to understand a little bit more about the process and the thought process that's gone through with that. It's been historically, obviously, we made a policy change during COVID to take care of a certain grading during that time period. That policy's now expired. But I'd like to understand the thinking and the logic that goes behind the changing of the weighting. My overall concern is the suggestion was that kids were stressed out. We're dealing with high flu rates and other illnesses and sicknesses. I feel like we're always going to be combating something. And my worry is that we're getting away from the rigors of what we're putting on and how we are making sure that our children are understanding and being proficient in the material that we're teaching them. And I'd like to understand if this is going to be a change going forward, or if we're ever going to go back to the standard that we previously had. And if we're not going back to the standard, why not? And how does that make sense with the rigors of the academics that we are striving for within Greenwich Public Schools?
So a couple of pieces with that. I think, first of all, what we're seeing in absence rates is not typical. We are still not where we were pre-COVID. When people are out and they're positive with COVID or the flu right now and RSV, they're missing a week of school. So you can have a student who's out for a week, and then they get back to school, they're there for a week, and then their teacher's out for a week. We are having very high absenteeism. And so I do think we're still in a unique spot. I think going forward, what I would be asking the principal and the assistant principal and their team is to do a really good review. And we talked about this. I really want to understand better, how are the colleges adjusting coming out of COVID? Just because we've always done something in a particular way doesn't necessarily mean it's the way we need to stay, but we really don't know what they're doing at the collegiate level. And I think we need to do our homework between now and next year so that we do make really a good informed decision and start looking at the colleges, just so that we understand how they are actually approaching their midterms and finals. And they may all be reverting back, but are they doing more project-oriented work? What does it look like in 2023 compared to what it used to look like? And I think we really need to do some homework.
No, that would be my suggestion, because my overarching concern is that we're doing our students a disservice in the fact that we're not adequately preparing them for the next academic phase in their life, because the way, at least when I was at college and the way I understood it until maybe recently, and I would appreciate the homework on this, is a lot more is weighted on the two tests, the midterm and the final. And I think that becomes a very harsh reality, and particularly for the transition going from being a senior in high school to a freshman in college. That's a big jump for kids, right? You're moving away from home for the first time. You're on your own. You're making choices. They're trying to figure out how to live life and get to class on time. And it is a hard adjustment. And so when you're talking about, not only is it that hard of an adjustment, but there's so much weighted on their academic performance on two tests. Again, the education on that topic will help us. They're going to be under a whole new stress that we haven't prepared them yet for at the high school level, where they're still at home, they still have their parents to lean on to help them get them through the process. So I just want to make sure that we're providing our students with an understanding and putting them in the best position to move forward in their academic adventures. And that's why I think we should look really closely at this policy change on the weighting to make sure we're actually not doing them a disservice. And maybe it's not moving it down to 5. Maybe there's a happy medium someplace else or a different way to structure it. But I do want us to give some critical thought into whether or not we're doing the right thing now but for them in the future.
Kathleen.
Yeah, sorry, I know that I was lucky enough to be at the student government at the time, and this was something that the students did advocate for this year, because I think they liked the change last year. But I hear you, Karen. I think it's a good analysis. We have seen so many changes over the past few years. I remember serving on the policy committee during the height of COVID and coming up with, I think, a really good plan at that time when things were particularly stressful. Thankfully, things have improved. I think last year was definitely the right call on this, as well as this year. And just to be clear, I especially thought it was, and I know that you guys advocated for this, it's the better of, right? So it might be 5%, it might be 10%. And I think that's a nice trigger, because for some, maybe it raises that quarter grade, or sorry, the overall transcript grade. For others, they prove themselves really well during those 4 quarters, and for whatever reason, they had a bad day. And so that gets weighted at 5% and everything else goes up accordingly. There is some merit to that. And I think that that is an interesting thing, but we should continue to analyze it.
Okay, moving on. Dr. Jones, I had called you either yesterday or the day before and said, I'm going to ask for some updates on some things. And I like to deal in good news, but some of these are not good news questions. But I think I do believe in transparency and really find that very important, and rather have facts that people can talk about rather than stuff than the speculation. So if you can give me an update on the Jeremy Boland investigation. I know that we're restricted on what we can and cannot say based on the number of investigations that are going on. I know you contacted our attorney and made sure what you said is what you can say, and I don't want anything more than what you're allowed to say. So please.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate, and I know the board knows this, but the community may not. Anytime we have any sort of personnel issue where we're dealing with a teacher, you always have to go into it thinking it could rise to the level of a termination hearing. And this board must be neutral going into that hearing, which means that we can't, when you have an active investigation, you can't go out and say exactly what's happening. So just for the community. But right now we still have, we have the Attorney General's investigation, which is ongoing, asked for more documents. Even as yesterday, we've sent them thousands of pages. CHRO is in the same, they are still in an active investigation, thousands of documents. The town of Greenwich is just starting literally this week. So that will be some sort of data pool. We're not sure. Really, that's not clear yet. And then we also have the Connecticut State Department of Education. So right now, until all 4 of those conclude, we don't know what they're going to find. And will all 4 of those actually agree with one another? So until that is completed, that's about as much as we can say.
So on that topic, as far as, and you explained this to me and it made a lot of sense, there are legal minds that are evaluating our options. And with those evaluations, they're deciding if we speed or hurry to a conclusion or to an action, it could be financially detrimental to our district or to our town. So there's people or groups of people or professionals that are evaluating how we should proceed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Michael?
So does that, just to clarify, does that mean, are we doing our own HR investigation, or are we waiting on those other 4?
We concluded ours, and that has been shared with the other agencies.
Karen?
I don't know if we've had a past circumstance in which we've engaged in our own HR investigation and drawn conclusions and then had subsequent or in parallel independent investigations from government agencies. Is it in the past, have we waited for all of those agencies to conclude prior to in taking that into account based upon your own HR investigation?
In all honesty, I've never seen this before, where you have all of these agencies that are investigating something like this. So I think it's new for all of us. But anytime you go to a termination hearing, Number one, they're very lengthy. They're very time consuming for all of you. And they are very, very expensive. You need attorneys at the table. You need hearing officers. So investing $500,000 to go to a termination hearing to then have, because you don't know what the results are going to be, 3 or 4 organizations come back and say your initial investigation was not correct. And then you're in a whole nother legal issue. So it's consulting with attorneys to make sure that what we're doing, we're trying to protect the interests of the district and make sure that investigations are very thorough. So, but this is a very unusual situation.
It seems very confusing, and I have one final question on this. Of course, others might have more. Do we feel we're adequately advised with town council, and do you feel comfortable being privy to the details more so than we're able to be privy to those details, that we are okay or adequately represented? Or if you think we're not, or if there's any question, let us know if we should consider going out and getting further advice from somebody.
So we do that in coordination with the town, and we have outside counsel working on this.
Thank you. Next, I'm sorry if I say this name incorrectly, Nicholas Skirkanish. Can you please update what you're able or can say or know, because this is not our investigation. This is an outside, he got arrested by an outside entity. So can you update us on that for the sake of transparency?
So the first action was through Homeland Security. And from a district standpoint, when you have any sort of federal agency, and sometimes even a local police department, if it's not Greenwich Police, we don't know either. So we find out about these things pretty much at the same time the community does when it's an agency like Homeland Security. They go through, they do their investigation until the investigative report comes out. You don't really know what's happening. And they also do not, they didn't share either with the Greenwich Police Department. They had no idea that this, arrest was going to be made. So again, it's just like kind of pretty much what I just said. We have to work with our local council, who generally we're also working with outside counsel on the advice of our local council to make sure that we take the right steps at the right time.
Thank you. Sorry to ask these negative questions, but I think transparency is quite important. Another one is the proactive steps that we've taken towards addressing some inappropriate library books that we had. Dr. Jones, I'm very happy with the actions you've taken to allocate some of our resources to looking through our extensive book collections and identify which ones are inappropriate for certain age children and which ones are not. Could you explain or at least talk a little about how you've addressed that and how you've taken this challenge on and some of the successes you've achieved so far?
I think the board is aware. We've had, a couple of books that have been brought to our attention that may be at the wrong age level, just not age appropriate for whatever library they're sitting in. We're not talking about curriculum materials. We'll talk about what's in the library. So we started back in October, just doing kind of a proactive review. In the end, we reviewed 14 different books, and it is our media learning facilitator. They get paid a stipend to be a leader in that media department who did that first review, looked at those books, looked at the ratings from a reputable, rating. Are the books actually age appropriate for middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders? And then made comments about, yes, the book is appropriate by the rating agency. And what are some comments? What are some themes within the book? And then made a recommendation to either keep it on the shelf in middle school, because yes, it was appropriate age, a developmental age, or no, it probably needs to be sent to the high school. And so after that, it came to me. I looked at all 14 of those, and then I did another review independent from that because I wanted to go look at a different rating system. And I even go out to like Amazon and look at how they've rated books, because they're a little bit more liberal. So you're getting different points of view on Amazon, and did a rating there. And after I did that, I was in agreement with most of the yes or no, except for 3 books where the rating systems weren't agreeing. One would have it starting like only for high school, like 15 and over. Another rating system might have said it was okay for 13 or 14-year-olds, but this is a middle school. So if it's going to be in the library, it needs to be appropriate for 6th, 7th, and 8th. So at that point, we were down to 3 books. We needed another review. And so our wonderful coordinators, curriculum coordinators got together and they decided who would be the first 3 people to actually read the book. They divided up, read the book. Then we came back together and then they gave their recommendation. And ultimately they agreed after all 3 of those reviews with our learning facilitator. In the end, out of 14 books, we ended up sending, I want to say 6, I think, to the high school. Out of those 6, only one of those books was at all 3 middle schools. The rest were just sitting on the shelf either at one school or it was a digital copy at one school. But it really is about age appropriateness, making sure we have books where they belong for the developmental age of the students.
Thank you. One more comment on that one, then I'll open up to others who might have to ask the question. I think it's safe to say that in your term as the superintendent, none of those books that have been identified and none of you found so far have been brought in by people working for you. It's past books, books that have been brought in years ago for whatever reason. Is that accurate?
To be honest with you, so many, the way that books are ordered, you're talking about media specialists, media assistants. I wouldn't want to answer that. Like, I have no idea who bought the book.
That's fair. Okay. Anybody else? Karen?
So there was a very graphic book and I think I sent a picture of it to some of my colleagues. And I don't even remember the title, but I could quickly find out. What is the status of that book? I could describe what the picture was. Okay. Well, I could, and in fact, it's in one of our libraries that all of our students are watching or can check out. So the question is, where's the status of that book?
So when it gets to looking at what's age appropriate, you can't just look at one picture from a book and say that it's not appropriate. You have to look at the book in its totality. And our media specialists do a great job when we question a book. I've had the high school, actually, media specialists have read 1 or 2 books because I'm like, somebody sent this about this book. Can you tell me, is it okay? They've gone home, actually read the book over the weekend. And in its totality, it was okay to have on the library shelf. You have to realize that just the health curriculum alone and what our students tackle in high school, they do learn about sex, and there are going to be library books that may have some pictures in them. And it is actually the life that they're living and learning about. And if it's in the context of age appropriate narrative, then it's okay. The book you're referencing, we haven't finished. So I don't know. All I have is a picture and I've got to get the book so that we can read the actual text.
Karen? I'm sorry, we finished? Sorry. Karen?
I'm assuming that we're talking about the same book because people had reached out to me as well. I've done a bit of my own research. I know it's an award-winning book. And this is issues and questions have been brought up about this book all over the country for many, many years, not even just recently. And, most people haven't pulled it off the shelf. It's oftentimes labeled with a label that says 18 and up. And if someone who's under the age of 18 wants to take that book out, they need to have parental permission. Is that something we would possibly consider if after your review, you found that to be an issue? I haven't read the whole book as of yet. I'm waiting to get a copy so I can do my own review, but it was interesting having read a little bit about it.
Currently, the book, at least the one that I'm reviewing, that was sent to me from more than one of you, is not an 18 and over. It's the age rating is for high school. So it's really about reading the content and making sure what's in it is appropriate from the high school developmental age, but the various ratings are all matching for high school.
So, and again, I'm not a big fan of banning books, but I also understand that we have students that come in at the young age of, maybe 14 at high school. Then you have students who are 18, 19 graduating high school. It's a vast difference in those ages. So if we're teaching, there's some discussion in health classes, what grades do those start? So I mean, we don't have to answer that now, but that's a question to ask in that regard, because there's a vast difference we were just talking about the swimming class, students coming in at 14 body types, and puberty and all sorts of other things at that age. So it's not that we need to get into that kind of conversation now, but good point. Yeah.
Michael?
So just to be clear.
Oh, sorry.
So to be clear to folks watching at home, I believe we're talking about Fun Home, a family tragic comic. That was the one we got emailed. So just to be clear. I'm not interested in I hear you talking about one book, many a Board of Education has gone down the rabbit hole of spending hours debating book and a book and a book. I don't know if that's the most productive use of our time. I do think moving forward at a time after this evening, it probably does behoove us to consider the purchasing process that we're using and the rating system we're using for books moving forward, because and also how we're vetting books in general. We know that this is a national issue. We could Google you can very easily Google any number of these political groups around the country that have compiled these lists of books and are actively encouraging local communities to say, go find out if you have this book in your library and raise a fuss with your Board of Ed. It doesn't make it makes sense for us to try to be proactive in some of that, particularly if there were books that could be concerning. I'll leave it to of my understanding about this particular book is we're doing review. That's fine. Let's continue the review. But I do think as far as the process goes, I think that's something that as a board, we should consider moving forward.
Thank you. Karen?
Yeah, I agree. I know, Tony, you and I have had some exchanges on the process by which books are selected and how they end up in the libraries. And I think it would be a great benefit to the community to understand that process in greater detail as to how those books, what is the selection process? How are they decided? How do they end up on the shelves? Because I think parents want to know that and want to know how whether the money is going for and what books their kids have access to. And so that they can also help have conversations with their kids about what books are, what they view as appropriate, because parents have a say and parents should have a say about the types of books that they have access to. And when they don't know what books they have access to, that creates a harder problem for a conversation at home in order to articulate what is appropriate and what is not in that one's household.
Thank you. I think Cody wanted to jump in if he was gleaming as if he had something very exciting to say.
Well, no, at first I liked Karen's line of, I'm not in favor of banning books, but I actually am sympathetic to that because I think I was just going to say, this might be a moment, or at some point we should consider the idea of laying out some parameters that can be useful for the book buyers, whoever. It's not going to make sense for us to micromanage individual book choices, but in particular for this one, just to throw out something for us to consider is a book that has lots of pictures that are sexually graphic. Like maybe if books write about stuff, but it's fine, or they can use their discretion, but we put I think we have the ability to say, hey, we're not going to have in our libraries things with pictures that are like extremely graphic, because everyone who saw that thought the same thing. I don't think anyone thought, oh, well, if I have the context around what was in the paragraphs, that would make it better. So I think that's something we should consider because it might be pretty easy. And honestly, I don't think it will have any academic impact. Most of the books in libraries, things are symbolic, and they're and the books you choose to have in the library, like the books you choose to have in your house, are kind of a representation of values, and like, hey, here's who we are. And so that might be an easy way for us to systematically just say, look, we're not into the book banning business, but if you want to get books with pornographic image content, buy them yourself. There's a lot on the internet.
Well, I was going to just say the same, our kids have access now to so much more so than we did, but at the same time, if we're talking about, and again, this goes back to, it's not about books, it's about the discussion of the process and the policy. What works well for one person who's reading a book, what they find interesting, is not going to necessarily be the person next to you is going to find a book interesting on that same topic. And so to have the discussion in the process of, I can understand that piece of the discussion, but when you sit there and have a discussion on it, we have books that cover a wide range of things that are part of curriculum. We talk about this all the time. not everything makes somebody comfortable when they're reading it, but when they go to the, for curriculum, but when you're going to the library, you have the choice. And what student A versus student B or C is looking at when they go to the library and the things that they're interested in reading about varies so vastly. So, which is why I'm like, I think it's exceptionally important that we don't base it on what one community or another type of student or interests are when we're looking at books. I think it's exceptionally important. This book is slightly different in other ways. So that's why I had reached out and asked, but that's just,
Michael, you could wrap us up. Oh, good.
I think if we've accomplished anything, we've probably raised the sale of this book 6,000% in town this evening. That's probably all we've managed to do. So I'd actually like to propose a motion to amend the agenda. If I could, we have a number of community volunteers here from the Old Greenwich Building Committee. And as you see, we have a very lengthy list of discussion items. So I would like to propose amending the agenda, make a motion to move item A up to next on the agenda item before the item A under action items up to before the discussion items for the good of our community volunteers who have been waiting patiently.
I would second that, and I think do we need discussion, or can I call the question? We have a motion, I've seconded. I told her just to chime in when she wants to talk, so I don't know if she's.
Yeah, my only concern, I guess the question is this really the time? We're still in the middle of the monthly reports. I'm not sure it's the time to make this motion. I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone else has a thought on where it falls in, like Robert.
Christina, we're going to put it after the reports, so we'll still have our reports, then we're going to move it to just after the reports. So if that's satisfactory, then we'll call a vote.
No, but I'm saying, I'm not sure it's the appropriate time to be making the motion procedurally. I don't have my Robert's rules handy with me, but because we're reordering our agenda now, which is fine. Yeah, I'm not necessarily opposed to it.
No, she's just saying, do it when we're done with the reports. We're all going to agree to it.
We
but
should
just as a
finish the
procedure
reports
point,
before we start changing right.
Can you withdraw your motion, and we'll do that?
At the end of 5B, make the same motion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christina, for pointing that out. And we'll now go to Christina for our community reports. She's going to talk about the Greenwich High School vestibule. And I love saying vestibule because in real life, I've never said that word before until this project, vestibule. So thank you.
Vestibule, entryway, tomato. I'm happy to report that the RTM overwhelmingly granted the 500,000 interim request for the entryway project. So the next step is the building committee is working on finalizing the plans to go to the state and the construction drawings. It will come back to us one more time for a final approval to authorize the going out to bid and the construction drawings, which will hopefully be in February, and keep the project on track to commence right after school gets out in June. And that is it.
Thank you, Christina. Remember to use sunscreen when you're out in the sun tomorrow. Anyone else for a committee report? Karen.
I was just going to report that SEAC met last week, and we had a very lovely meeting, and they were discussing a lot of interesting different topics. Michael Joseph and I have reached out to the heads of SEAC to arrange some brown bag meetings with them prior to our next presentation on the update on action items on the audit. What? At the retreat. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be speaking with them soon, and we'll have some additional updates. I know that they're looking to add some more parent education and speaking sessions. One was in the end of January. They're looking to set something up about a mental health workshop. In the spring, they've spoken about a couple of other different speakers and looking into somebody for also next fall. Once we have more information on that, we will share that with you. I know that I think the end of January workshop, I think I could be wrong, is January 24th at 7 p.m. Is that correct? Oh, Okay, well, I have a date here, so I'll come back to you on what that was. I thought that's when it was. Anyway, so that's our update.
Thank you. Anybody else? Laura, we're going to update you in our update. So
Sure.
you don't have to update.
The Greenwich
the
line.
update. Yep. Okay. And Kathleen?
Thanks. Just real fast. Proud to be now the liaison to the Greenwich Alliance. And Julie provided me some quick updates, which is 80,000 in scholarships was just awarded to 37 avid college students, which brings the distribution for this year up to 155. Reaching out grant applications now available on the Alliance website and due Friday, March 24th. The Alliance is looking for proposals for programs that expand opportunities for underserved students, as well as inspire educators. GPS Honors Band Festival will be held on Wednesday, February 8th at 7 p.m. at the PAC. And last but not least, one of my personal favorites, so I'm so excited to be announcing it, is the Trivia Challenge. One year, one of my board colleagues and I went. You guys remember this? Gaetan and I celebrated because we won, just saying. And with a few other people, I have to admit, who might have carried us. But still, that trivia challenge is Friday, March 3rd, will be held virtually and allows teams to include friends and family for all over the country. So mark that date. Maybe we get a little bit of a team together. Okay.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm finding more and more about that Alliance. I didn't know much about them, and they're a great organization. So thank you for being so involved with that. Anybody else with a committee update? I have a couple. I'll be quick. Virtual net metering. We went out with an RFP. We had successful replies. We are now in the process of evaluating, and that's a very good thing. We've talked about that before, and it's a good thing. And Blaze says that we'll be getting results very, very soon. Next one, JC Building Committee. We've met a number of times. We're putting together an RFP for an architect that's going to phase the improvements on JC. We're going to have an elevator, security entryway, a whole bunch of cool stuff that we're going to be upgrading our building on at JC. Anybody else with a report? Okay, Michael, did you want to make some sort of motion?
I would. If I would like to move that item A under action item be moved to next on the agenda.
I will second that and also call the question. All in favor of moving that, we'll need a 2/3 vote. Please put your hand up. That looks like that passes unanimously. You don't want to vote for that? Okay, passes. Okay, very good. So we'll do that. So why don't we then, that would be then now.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to introduce the chairman of the Old Greenwich Building Committee, James Waters. It is my great pleasure to be the Board of Ed liaison to this exceptionally hardworking group that's been meeting multiple times a week for months now. And they're very excited to bring to the board tonight the suggestion of the architect to hire to keep moving this project forward.
The mic is yours. Thank you. Don't break it.
I'll try not to.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Jones. I'm James Waters, and I'm humbled to serve as the chairman of the Old Greenwich School Building Committee. The Old Greenwich School Building Committee is excited to join you tonight to recommend Silver Petroselli and Associates as our architect. As you know, our committee's been hard at work since October, and I hope you've all had a chance to read our first quarterly report distributed last Friday. In the past 14 weeks, we've met 18 times and have made significant progress in making the Old Greenwich School renovation project actionable. We owe tremendous thanks to our stellar team of volunteers who've committed themselves to making this happen. Many of them are sitting here. If you guys raise your hands, please. Thank you. Yeah. Our committee would like to also thank GPS's purchasing department for swiftly adjudicating our questions and guiding us through the RFP process. It's pretty detailed. They're a tremendous asset to the town, and we certainly appreciate all their hard work. We'd also like to thank the town legal department and town clerk's office for helping us stay on track and by the book. Finally, I'd like to personally thank Stephen Walco, Tony Turner, Leslie Moriarty, and Mike Mason Mike sitting back there, and many others for their thoughtful input and guidance. This has been a true team effort, and we feel lucky to have so many great public servants dedicated to the OGS project in our town. So this board approved the ed specs for Old Greenwich School in October 2021. As a reminder, key items to address in the upcoming renovation / addition include bringing the school into compliance with the 1990 ADA Act, including the installation of an elevator, creating a single secure entryway for visitor management, managing stormwater to prevent further flooding and raw sewage seeping into classrooms, adding a building-wide sprinkler system to adhere to the current fire code, addressing health issues with a building-wide HVAC system, ensuring new classrooms account for a strong, sustained enrollment at OGS and 21st century learning environment. The OGS Building Committee's rolled up its sleeves to understand the ed specs and then draft, solicit, analyze proposals from architects and owners reps. We've interviewed candidates, compared costs, and have begun the process of interfacing with key stakeholders and members of the community. Just this afternoon, we were proud to give a tour to the first selectman so he could see the need for advancing the project. We'll be prepared to speak to the Board of Estimate and Taxation about the OGS renovation during their upcoming FY 2023-2024 budget deliberations. Our BET representative, Stephen Selps, who's over there, has been keeping the BET apprised of our progress. As we go about hiring our professional team to include an architect, owner's rep, and other consultants, at the forefront is staying on time and on budget. We're confident that we're in a position to move forward on this project in the coming fiscal year if funds are included in the budget, as this board has recommended. We know that this board budgeted $24.5 million for the OGS renovation, in addition to the $1 million approved by the BET last year. In the coming months, we'll be taking a deep dive to refine the estimate and ensure it's consistent with the scope of the project and current construction costs, taking into account inflation and the supply chain issues. So after lengthy and thoughtful deliberation, the OGS Building Committee unanimously, an 8-0 vote, voted to recommend Silver Petroselli and Associates as our architects. We felt their experience with the town, strong team, familiarity with projects like ours, and integrated approach to solving challenges made them a great fit to lead our project. So with that, I'll turn it over to David Stein from SPNA, who will walk us through an introduction to what SPNA will bring to the table to get this done. Thank you.
I think there's a presentation and. Oh, perfect. How did that happen? Magic. So. Good evening, everybody. My name is David Stein. I'm a principal with Silver Petroselli Associates. My partner, Amanda Cleveland, is here also to speak on behalf of the project. But let me first begin to thank the committee and also obviously the Board of Ed. We're familiar. It's nice to have an opportunity to be here live. I know I've spoken to you in the past where I've been up on the screen being a part of your meeting. So it's actually nice to be here and see everybody face to face. Want to just start out in giving everyone an introduction of our team and sort of our approach to this project. So we are an integrated practice. Our firm is in its 32nd year of service, and it's really built around the principles of good, sensible design within the educational community. That is our core. That's really our core guidance, is to sort of work within the communities that we live in, communities where we work in. And this project really aligns with what we like to do, which is bringing architects, engineers, and interior designers all in one uniform group. We're unique in that way of just 50 individuals that are sort of focused in on that. A lot of our peers are just bring in consultants, and we do have consultants that we will talk about. I guess actually on the next slide is a good place to go to that. So what you see there on sort of the face page of the group that we have purposely assembled for this project is everyone sort of above that red line is part of the Silver Petroselli team. We have two offices, one in Hamden, one in New London. A majority of the group will be working out of Hamden, but in, in the virtual world, we, work is done all over. But we bring in the consultants that really are important to the challenges of this project, such as Langen Engineering. And these are also similar team members that are working on the GHS project that Ms. Downey just referenced, that we were also on and in the process of sort of finishing up those revised designs. So just having that continuity, a team player, I think is important to understanding the challenges of this project, along with understanding the goals of the budgets that are set forth. So we have Langen Engineering. They have an office in New Haven. They have an office in White Plains. Michael Horton Associates, structural engineer, a key part of this overall project to sort of evaluate that original building and how we're going to be able to institute mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems in it. They were also on the high school project. Rounding out that, we have an IT consultant with D'Agostino and consultants, and also PM&C, and I'll talk a bit about them. They are third-party cost estimators out of Boston, and they are going to be a key part to doing that sort of independent check of our budget as we continue to go along and move through this project. So if we do need to pivot in a direction, we could do it at the right time. And obviously, those are things that unfortunately caught up on the Greenwich High School projects, and we plan to be back on track with that one. Next slide, please. So as part of our experience, majority of our work is actually in the renovation of existing schools. And the list of dozen projects here, 2 of them are actually projects that we work with Dr. Jones when she was in Fairfield. That actually the Mill Hill project that we recently completed. If you could see some of those, just scale of those projects, they are equal in just those order of magnitude. But also just equal in terms of the complexity of projects that will be constructed while the students are in school. That is a really complex way of what goes first, designing a building based on its construction or designing a building that obviously is for its students. So having that broad experience in renovation projects, we are going to focus obviously on the educational goal, but understanding how can we sequence the work. And we're going to be partnering with the owner's rep that will be brought on shortly and a construction manager that will be brought on shortly. And with that teamwork, we will find the right design to work with the phasing of this project. Next slide, please. So with that, as we begin to craft a project, we are mindful of the process. And the process begins with the educational spec. That's really sort of our guiding or North Star on a project. We have reviewed the educational spec that was approved, and we will, as we get further along, we may make suggestions on making slight edits to that in the intent to maximize your reimbursement from the state of Connecticut. So there are different strategies just in terms of the way that's crafted, the way that it's worded, to make sure that it's broad enough to capture everything that you want, but it's not finite enough that may limit your reimbursement. So just as you saw those 12 projects on the previous slide, those all were state reimbursed projects with various reimbursement rates from each of those communities. And with that, our charge as your architect of record is also to help navigate and maximize the best of our ability, the reimbursement of the project. We looked at sort of 4 goals that we interpreted as part of the project, the educational adequacy of the project, and that really is looking at a 21st century forward learning environment. It's a bit of a challenge to adapt in a building that was built in this era, but I think we have some solutions, and Amanda will talk briefly about ways that we think we can we can make spaces a bit more flexible as opposed to being fixed items. Security, and none of these are in any particular order of importance. They're just the ways that I've sort of just crafted them here in the presentation. But security obviously is a key piece on our mind in the world that we live in, and we want to design strategies that are not only physical, but also passive solutions that can work well as we adapt into your building. Accessibility, barrier-free, universal design. These are solutions that we are mandated actually, we're now in the 2010 ADA code, which came up in 1990. But we need to come up with solutions that are not obvious to being just accessible. They need to be universal. They need to be part for everybody to use, and not a specific item that says this is the accessible entryway. It should be for every entryway. Health and safety, it's a broad statement, but in the world that we live in today, obviously air quality, ventilation, daylight are all critical pieces to creating a healthy environment for the students and your educators. That is going to be a challenge to fit those mechanical systems and those modern systems into the buildings that you have. But those 12 projects that you saw before equally had those same challenges, and most of 169 towns in Connecticut are all dealing with that same approach of renovating projects. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda and then come back with a few more slides.
Perfect. Thank you. So again, my name is Amanda Cleveland. I'm principal of the Interiors Department at Silver Petroselli. As James had mentioned, part of my job is talking to all of the key stakeholders on the project. So that ranges from the students who use the space, the educators who teach in it, the paraprofessionals that come in, the PTO, the Board of Ed, the parents, you name it, whoever has any involvement in these classrooms, I want to know your opinion. As you can imagine, a student using a classroom has a very different experience than the teachers who's giving it. And that's why I like to hear all the different aspects of how those classrooms are used. I like to know how they work well. And more importantly, I like to know how they don't work. Because what our job is to take that ed spec that we've been given and actually challenge you, because it's a year old and things have changed in a year. We've seen that we've had to adapt classrooms for COVID. Everything was get them in, get them tight. We're trying to get as many people in there as possible. And now what we're seeing is space them out, give them room. How can we teach remotely as well as teach in person? So these are all the different aspects that I'm going to help guide through the process so that we make sure as we go through and we do that design, that we're giving you the optimized space, that we've looked at every angle, every cabinet that goes in is designed for what needs to be stored there. Every piece of technology that's being used is the most up-to-date and user-friendly. But it's also about blending in all of your specialties. So making sure special education, STEM and STEAM programs, you name it, has all been thought out. And I like to say that I create this geeky little spreadsheet that only I really enjoy. But what that is it's that roadmap that David talks about that truly then ends with not only picking the appropriate finishes, because we're talking about allergens and green and off-gassing, but sustainability, all the way down to I will be there unpacking the boxes of the furniture as it's coming into the building, making sure that everything goes into place. So the more information and the more people that can get involved in this process really makes my job a lot easier. So I'm going to pass it back to Dave.
Thank you. Just wanted to show you a case study when we first were interested in this project and did the walkthrough and learned more about some of the water course issues and the drainage issues around the property. We immediately went to a project that we just finished in the northwest part of the state in Winstead. It was Mary Hinsdale School. We just completed it. You probably saw it on its list, about a $18 million project. That school actually had a water course that was running under it. If you could believe it, someone thought it was a great idea to run at one time to build a water course there. It also had accessibility issues, and the entry was sort of nondescript, and we knew we needed to sort of solve two problems with one solution. What this is really illustrating is what we did is we reworked the entryway and we also rerouted the water course. So by engineering and creative design, can we solve two solutions in one? And that is kind of the approach that we bring along to all of these renovation projects, because with budgets, even at $24.5 million, we are still challenged to make that all work. So if we can do the 2-for-1 solution, we will look at that. And this was one case study we presented to the building committee because we just draw a direct parallel with that. Next slide, please. We talk about sustainability, and renovation is probably the best way to practice sustainability. The majority of this building is going to stay the way that it was originally built. Okay, these are not being demolished and going into dumpsters. There's a lot of value in that, and that's why we like to practice that. New buildings are wonderful and they have their purpose, but the renovation of an existing building is sustainable just in its own merits. A high performance building is what we're going to be obligated to provide. The state statute requires that a building of this order of magnitude, we are going to need to meet the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED Silver equivalent certification, which is the Connecticut High Performance Building. We're going to do that through a variety of solutions that we can fit within the building that is there, but we're also going to challenge ourselves and challenge the budget to see if there are certain alternatives that we can lean forward, obviously aligning with your plan of conservation and development, and find the right solution that could fit within that building. Some of the tools that we use to make sure that works, as you can see, just this graphic at the bottom right of the screen, is all of this work is captured in a three-dimensional model. We actually take your two-dimensional drawings and we build a building three-dimensionally on the computer. That allows us to determine conflict resolution and whether or not beams are going to intersect with new piping and so forth. So we're going to try to proof that out before we get out to construction, when contractors then already have solutions in hand. So this is going to be a key part. Actually, this is where the majority of the money of the budget is going to go. Unfortunately, our engineers in-house, their best work is never seen, but it's the most important piece of really the project, is that health and safety component of it. And we're going to work hard to make sure we find the solutions that have a long payback for the investment that you're going to be putting into it. And lastly, if you could go to the next slide, please. I want to talk about schedule. So with that, schedule drives budget, budget drives schedule for that. So our team, along with the owner's representative and the construction manager equally, are going to sort of pull at each other to keep ourselves on time and on budget. What is crafted here, we have reviewed the building committee's goal of moving the design through, starting in February and really continuing through September to get those initial concepts developed, presented, vetted, challenged, and so forth. Once the construction manager is on board, they're also going to be doing the same. They're going to be reviewing the progress of our drawing. They're going to be making suggestions on material, supply chain issues. These are different challenges than we've ever dealt with in the past. And that really guides the process that we go along with it. The pre-construction phase is just that. It's looking at items that we could get onboarded before we really start construction. And then it's moving through your approval process in terms of the BET, back to the Board of Ed in terms of formal approvals, and on to the RTM for final funding and so forth. So we'll be there to help shepherd that project along and provide that technical support and speak on behalf of the design and the merits of the project. And then once we go into bidding and awards and construction, our team, we do have dedicated construction administrator. We also have a licensed building official. Will be on board to help manage the project, make sure that the contractors and their team is building the project in accordance with the mission. And at the end of the day, certify that this project meets and exceeds the expectations that were set forth as we start off today. So with that, again, thank you for trusting us with this important project. We're excited to get started, and we know it's a long journey, but we'll be there one step at a time. So thank you. Yeah, happy to stay.
Thank you. Yes, please stay. We're going to follow through with some questions.
Right.
Does anybody have a question? Well, I guess I'll start off. Nobody else has one. Well, obviously.
I have a comment. I have a comment.
Go right ahead.
Oh, okay, just making sure. I just want to say, I wasn't aware that Silver Petrocelli had been selected by Old Greenwich up until you guys just announced it. So it's not like, I just want to be clear, this process was very independent on behalf of the Old Greenwich Building Committee. That being said, they've been a pleasure to deal with for the high school entryway. They've been responsive, they've been thoughtful, they've been open to our suggestions, crazy and not crazy. And David and his team have really just been a pleasure to work with, and we look forward to working with them and completing the vestibule. And I'm happy to say we've been very happy customers thus far with them. So I just wanted to give that plug, and really did not know until tonight that they had been selected. So thank you.
Thank you. The only, I guess the question, or one question I have is, what did you think about we voted and looked at the feasibility studies, some opportunities to sketch out what our thoughts might be during the feasibility process. Do you have any comments about your observations of our feasibility?
We did, and we didn't want to be too presumptuous, but we're architects and we brought our own thoughts, at least initial thoughts, more just to sort of demonstrate to the building committee how we think than anything. And, we were doing that in a vacuum. So we didn't have the opportunity of learning more about the project and meeting the individuals that we'll be working with. But yeah, we did look at that. We came up with some solutions that we thought we could possibly reduce some of the square footage if we just looked at sort of rearranging the corridors. Circulation is a big part of the school. Circulation is basically the hallways. Those are just square footage that gets you from point A to point B. And if we could do that in a shorter manner, we could save costs, because building buildings is just cost per square foot. So we looked at a solution that we thought could possibly do that. We also looked at sort of a two to one scenario that similar to what I showed you on the Mary Hinsdale project, in which wanted to contemplate, can we move the original entryway back to that front entryway, resolve the ADA issue by creating a grade scenario, but under that, can we also now put storm drainage systems in that? So that still needs a proof of concept to see whether we can make that work, and we do want to explore that. But again, we start a project like this with an open mind. We will challenge that other solution, but understand that there's other ones that are there and work towards that. It's really a one step at a time process. But yes, we did look at that. We saw the merits that were there, and I think we could keep a lot of that. We would like to look at some other alternatives that we think may be able to help save cost. And we're going to need to do that across the board, because prices just aren't going down. So we're going to have to do whatever we can to get in that right direction.
So that it's good that we've given you a bit of a nudge in a direction that we certainly were okay with back when we voted way back when. And I guess there's luckily we have two advocates for you guys. Obviously, our board liaison, Michael, who is an advocate, and what a surprise, we have Christina as well. So that's a plus. Minuses are, this is the first we're seeing of any information. So I'm not sure that our members are able to gather enough to make a decision. So I'm going to leave that to them. If they obviously will call the vote at one point, but I'm going to leave the floor open to anybody else who might want to gather more information to see if they can get enough tonight to make that vote. Karen?
Well, I was going to second what Joe said. I mean, I've seen the work and the presentations you guys have done here with other projects, but this is the first time we've seen this. So I know I had asked earlier if we were going to have an opportunity to see any of the information, but I want to make sure that this is being posted because it's not up on the website. I don't have any questions, simply because I was watching. I haven't had a chance to really think it through, but I know I had spoken to members of the building committee without knowing who they selected, and had heard that, I believe was it a unanimous decision? Yes, by the building committee, and that they all had very positive things to say without sharing information with me as to who had been selected. But I did reach out to other members to ask, so I thought I'd at least share that.
Anybody else? Karen?
Sorry, you can't see me from.
I know we got changed just a little bit. Sorry.
So first of all, I'm really pleasantly surprised to hear the words coming out of your mouth about working within the budget and coming up with solutions, because I think to be honest, it's really important. We're on the verge of, with Old Greenwich, and then we have CMS as well, which is an enormous burden on our capital here in town. And it is nice finally to hear someone say, we're going to work with you to try to keep this as close to budget as possible. We're coming up with solutions. We have new ideas and ways in which that we can perhaps shrink the square footage that doesn't impact the educational opportunities which we're providing. This is all music to our ears. And I'd also like to, or at least to mine, and I'd also like to comment that the track record that you have given with the high school entryway, and the fact that we as a board came back and said, the expense of this was going to be something of an additional $2.5 million. And we said, yeah, we're not doing that. And you came back with an alternative that works, provides the solution that we're looking for at just a little bit more of a cost, but certainly not the full weight of what was originally being presented to us, is also, gives us, I think, and gives me the comfort to say, we're looking for a partnership. And I think that's what a lot of projects often miss at times, is that partnership. We're not, we're not an endless bank that's just rolling out the dough. We're just not. And I am grateful to hear the words of, we're working with you and the budget and trying to stick to it, because we haven't heard that in a while. And that gives me a lot of confidence in the project. So I appreciate that. I was on the feasibility study for the Old Greenwich School. We worked really hard to try to push that down and getting the right number for that school in what needed to happen. It's a great school. It's in a great community. It has a lot of unique characteristics that I want to keep and basically accentuate, and rather than get rid of, because that school has a lot of history, particularly Attic. If you've been up there, I'm kind of worried if there's bodies. Anyway, but I do appreciate that. And I thought the presentation was great. Thank you.
Kathleen?
Real fast, just to wrap this up. Building committee conducted due diligence, references, all that jazz. Great.
Great question. Anybody else? Well, one big thing that's helping me decide on this was Barbara O'Neill. You've convinced her to support this project, so holy smokes. Gotta love that.
And Joe, if I can make a comment.
Of course.
I think, if the building committee has done their due diligence, while I think none of us love that we just didn't get any documents in advance in the presentation now, it is the role of the building committee to do the due diligence and make the decision. And the fact that they were unanimous and they're making a recommendation, in addition to the fact that I think we have familiarity with Silver Petrocelli, I'm good with voting in favor tonight. I see no need to further delay the project. So that's my point of view. Others can disagree.
Thank you. And Michael, I guess maybe you can conclude and then we can take a vote.
Yes. So based on, I appreciate all the comments, and I think a lot of the comments that fellow board members have mentioned are why we all of us on the building committee felt so strongly about Silver Petrocelli. They know Greenwich. They're thinking creatively. They have an in-house team, and they very much impressed all of us. And their references all checked out. And I'm sorry, Christina, you weren't. We kept you in the dark. We were advised to keep everyone in the dark, but I assure you that the Chairman Waters had many conversations with Chairman Walco about references.
No, I like that. No, because then it shows that it was an independent decision. So it's good that we were kept in the dark.
Exactly. So I'd like to make a motion to accept Silver Petrocelli as the architect of the Old Greenwich project.
I'm happy
I
to
second.
Who seconded it? Oh, Karen. Okay, Karen second, of course. Yeah, I'm sorry. So we have a motion seconded on over there. Hello, on the floor.
At the kids' table over there.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank
Welcome
you.
aboard. Thank you. Okay, moving on, let's go to the Central Middle School update. Dr. Jones.
I think we've really talked about this. Just a reminder, we have a question and answer document the board has that will go out tomorrow. I think it'll be very, very helpful for the larger community. We also have a brand new fact sheet that the board got today that will go out tomorrow as well. And we do have a third document we're working on. More specifically, it's a little bit more detail even for the BET. So I'll just leave it at that. But it will, once it goes out, it will be online, be on the project page, be available to everybody who wants to learn about the project.
Anyone on Central Middle School? It's a negative. Let's move on. Western Middle School, please.
Again, on this one, I think I've already addressed it in my superintendent's comment. So we don't need to belabor it anymore. If we could move on to the next item, if you're happy.
So I understand Parks and Rec has already assigned the fields for fall. So we could be ready that soon. Is that correct? Just kidding. Okay, moving on. Now we have new courses, GHS to be approved for the COSG first read. Dr. Carabello?
I don't need the podium. Thank you so much. I just have Jason Polis, and he's here tonight to present the Guitar 2 new course, which is very exciting. And then after Jason, we will have Andrew Byrne present the linear algebra course.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jason Polis. I teach at GHS. Thank you all for your time tonight as I present an exciting potential new course offering at GHS. At GHS, we currently offer a 1 semester 3-block beginning guitar course. After having taught at GHS for 5 years, it's clear to me that our guitar program is growing and there's a need to offer a second level of guitar. This new class called Guitar 2 will serve students at GHS in a number of ways. In the past few years, we have increased our class offerings of beginning guitar from 3 times per year to 5 times per year due to demand. Many students and parents are now asking if there is a way for students to continue their study of guitar. As guitar classes are 3-block classes, they complement the heavier 6-block offerings of orchestra, band, and choir, meeting the needs of a segment of our population that love music, but sometimes can't commit to a performance ensemble like band, choir, or orchestra, or simply don't have the room in their schedules for a 6-block music class. Another need that this class addresses is that we often have guitarists enter GHS that already have substantial guitar experience, and there currently is no class that meets their needs for pursuing guitar past a basic level. I have taught the beginning guitar course for several years now. Based on my observations, most students who have taken Guitar 1 would be interested in taking Guitar 2. Much of my teaching role at GHS involves teaching electronic music classes. This expanded guitar curriculum will help to feed skilled guitarists into our electronic music program and jazz ensembles. We have 2 jazz ensembles. We have enhanced our electronic music curriculum in the past few years to include learning guitar, piano, bass, and drums. In our songwriting and recording classes, students now play in rock band type ensembles as part of their assured experience. Students who have taken Guitar 1 and 2 will not only be a major boost to the electronic music program, but will now have a way to collaborate and play in small ensembles with other students using their guitars and their guitar skills. In addition, after taking Guitar 2, GHS will have many guitarists that will be capable of joining one of our 2 jazz ensembles. Lastly, expanding our offerings, and especially 3-block offerings in music, will allow us to engage musically with a more diverse population of the school, and as a result will strengthen the connection of the music department and the entire school. That's it.
Okay, questions? Karen?
So are we intending to offer this for the for the next year.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
the 2023, 2024. year.
Right, yep,
Okay.
that's the plan.
And how many students do we think are interested in this program?
It's hard to say. I've taken informal polls in the class and had the students give me sort of like exit polls and stuff as they finish the class. And I think there could be as many as 40 students that want to take it next year. And so we're planning on offering it first and second semester, and then based on enrollment, figuring out if we're going to have it both semesters. Action.
And how will this impact, or can it be used for any portion of their graduation requirements?
That's a great question. I can't answer. It's complicated. I know they need fine arts. It can serve in a few different ways.
Okay, so it,
Yep. It's a fine art credit, but it's more than that as well. And so I can get back to you on exactly all the possible ways that it can help them. But part of what's great about offering something like this is that it can help to fulfill needs for the kids in a music area where they may not be in band or choir, something like that. And it's a way for them to get involved in music. We have a few other classes that are 3-block classes, intro to music theory, and then intro electronic music. But that's basically it for music. So this would help.
I'm all for expanding our music program. I mean, under Ms. Newell and what she's done with it and building it up. And I think it's only shown that we have an amazing and a talented group of students that are looking for ways in which that they can expand on their music credentials. And I think if there's a need for this class, and particularly with the number of students, there's no reason we shouldn't be offering it. And I think we should just make sure that we can find ways in which that it could, go toward their graduation requirements. I know that there's a lot of rigors there, and I wouldn't want these particular students, because they want to take these classes because this is what interests them, in any way hurts their ability or jams up their schedules so that they can get the right credits to graduate.
Yeah.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Karen. No, please. No, girls first. No, your question's probably a lot better than mine anyway.
I don't know if my question's any better, but I was going to say, I love the idea of this. I think it's an incredible opportunity to offer, more arts programs, as Karen was saying. And so if there's, I had 2 questions, if there's an interest in guitar too, do you think this might have any opportunities to lead to other upper level technique courses? Either in, guitar or other
In my
strings?
mind, I dream like, so I teach electronic music, and in there we have a new initiatives as the last couple of years where we have the kids playing in bands. It's really incredible. So in addition to songwriting, they're learning how to play together, and they learn bass, drums, and keyboard. And but anyways, I can imagine that these two, once they finish guitar 2, they can go into the songwriting, and that will give them a place to further develop, because they will be playing in ensembles. And for a school to have kind of a School of Rock thing, it's pretty rare. It's really cool to see these kids. And my favorite part about this whole boosting up the guitar program at GHS and the electronic and music program, in terms of getting kids to really play as a group there, we're attracting a whole population from the school that isn't always, they're not always your band kids, they're not your orchestra kids necessarily. And they're starting to really come out of the woodwork, and they love the collaborative nature of getting to play rock music and write music together,
Well, I'm glad my thought process was so transparent that you went right to School of Rock.
Okay.
But so my other question is, I know you mentioned that there was going to be no cost for educators, and that you were going to be creating, there was a discussion at looking at a method book. So I just I was wondering if you or other educators are going to be creating the method book for the course, or are we going to look for any just additional materials, or have access to some online resources?
So I've created a book, the Guitar 1 course, and I can share that with you guys. And then I've created this, I will be creating the second as well. So I've been teaching guitar for a few decades. So I'm looking forward to, designing that, and I can share that with you guys. And basically I wrote a book for the first course, and there's also YouTube practice videos So if a kid even ever misses a class, they literally have a whole video of me just playing the stuff with them, and they can, so that would be the idea for the second level too.
Well, now that I know there's YouTube videos, I can
Oh.
be very happy to teach myself to play
Yeah.
guitar. I definitely would need an educator to help me with that, but thank you for answering my questions.
Now, level one's. Dan, 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 dan,
That's in there, that's in there.
Right. Where are we
Yeah.
at level two? Give me some sort of. something to relate to that.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, they're gonna, they move on to Green Day and they learn Led Zeppelin and, they'll end up doing some funk stuff, James Brown. They'll do some, get into a little bit of jazz too. So, well, honestly, Guitar 1, it's amazing what they end up walking away with. And if we can have Guitar 2, I think the kids will be just delighted that I think they were honestly shocked that we could really play at the end of the first semester.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Thank you very much. Any more questions? Thank you very much for that.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
So we have K8 STEM report.
Honors linear algebra.
Oh, okay. Honors linear algebra. Where's that? Okay. Honors linear algebra. I don't have it.
It's part of the course of study guide, same section.
Oh, same thing. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay, Mr. Kelly. Good evening, Chairman Kelly, Board of Education, Dr. Jones. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you here today about our proposed course, Honors Linear Algebra. As you've heard me through the last couple of years, we're really excited by the work that's happening at our elementary and middle schools as far as math and math advancement. And we're seeing more and more students who are running through our program at a very quick pace. It's a really good problem to have. So I'm excited to bring forward to you today Honors Linear Algebra, which is really kind of the next step in a child's mathematics progression. It really is the foundation for all STEM fields. As you can see in the proposal here tonight, the applications of linear algebra are varied and many. Everything from economics to neuroscience to theories of relativity. So we think this will be a wonderful opportunity to encourage our students to continue to grow. And we're really excited to be able to bring this forward to you tonight.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, we got lots of questions.
Well, mine's not well, I may have a question, but I just wanted to start by saying a huge thank you. I mean, for many, many, many things, but for this in particular, because this is something that I know that parents have been asking for, the board has been asking for so long, that we have so many students at the earlier levels now doing triple jumps that they're running out of math courses. So I am just thrilled that you brought this forward, but I'll let Kathleen ask her questions because I know she has a student that might be might be in that course if we ever approve it.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Yeah, which is, so you would think I'd be all for it, but I'm going to ask some questions about, because it's a limited group of children, right? Let's sort of reset everyone just so people understand. I mean, my high school's topped out at BC calculus. We're talking about the fact that children can take advanced calculus here already. So in order for you to be on track for this course, you'd have to be a sophomore taking BC calculus. I am lucky enough to be in that, I do have a child in that, but that means that, I think there's 6 kids perhaps throughout his class doing that. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, we currently have 7 students who are juniors in our advanced calculus class. So we would definitely need to recruit a few more students to be able to run the course, but to have it on the books and really have it as an opportunity or understood pathway, I think would be really helpful to a lot of our community that have inquired about that over the years.
Yeah, and so I do appreciate that. What I guess I need to understand, because we always have to look at things, is if we can run a course, right? If it's appropriate, I appreciate that it costs money. We talk about the books, but obviously we also have to find a teacher to teach it, which it's already challenging to find teachers to teach advanced calculus, right? These are hard classes to teach. But the independent study does seem to be working well for some, right? I want to understand that a little bit because I know that it's MIT, right? It's free.
Well,
right?
yeah, yes, 100%. We will continue to offer those independent study pathways. Not everyone is interested in linear algebra. Just in our research, I think the vast majority of students who are on this pathway will take linear algebra, and that's why we chose to go in this direction as opposed to other directions. But, until it makes really fiscal sense for Greenwich High School and certainly the board, we would work very closely with Dr. Jones and Mr. Mayo, Ms. Talata to ensure that, it makes a lot of sense to have a full class dedicated versus taking a look at the independent study pathway. So you bring up excellent points, but we're not, there's certainly no plans to just run it with 2 or 3 kids. And the independent study pathway has been working well for us, but I think it will be important as we see more and more students come through that we have it on the books, that we get teachers trained and get ourselves ready for when that big influx will come, because it is coming.
Yeah, I was wondering that. I mean, we are starting to matriculate more and more children into this path. I mean, it's incredible. I actually wanted to say do we have any comps? Are there other high schools that are doing this? I mean, I feel like, wow, already.
Yeah, so I did a survey throughout Fairfield County. There isn't another school that has it on the books. Many of the schools will do an independent study like we've done. A broader search, there's some schools in the city like Bronx School of Science and Stuyvesant that do have it on the books. So just to kind of put that in perspective, and some schools like the Massachusetts Math Academy, Math and Science Academy also has it on the books. So they're few and far between. But I love the idea of us getting ahead of it and actually having it there as a known pathway for our students and for our families.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
incredible. The fact that we even can contemplate this is impressive, but, so thank you, but I know, I realize it requires a lot of diligence and thought.
Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not unsupportive. I'm supportive of the thing, but I do want to caution us because this is not a no-brainer in much of the country. If you look, you read, there's a lot of debate going on in other parts of the country that we shouldn't be doing this kind of math acceleration. There's no question that, and that triple jumps and things like that, we should, are not healthy for kids' social emotional growth. So you certainly cannot point to I'm not arguing either way. I'm just saying it is a very rich debate. If you look and see, particularly out in California, which has its own problems, but there's a lot of state policy right now to push back on this. So I'm not suggesting we do this, but I am suggesting that part of the reason for that is the significant social emotional pressure. We point to you raised Stuyvesant and Bronx Science. Neither one of these are synonymous with student mental health. They both those schools have significant crises in the pressures and stresses. So I just want to caution us that as we continue to consider these kind of advanced enrichment options for students, just because it's available for students doesn't mean that it's healthy. As soon as we create these paths, that means we're creating pressure for students to take them. We know the competition is real. And is that race to, at some point, we do have to consider if that race to these kind of super advanced sophomore college before you graduate high school is necessarily worth it. So I'm not saying we're voting no, but I think we need to be mindful of all aspects of this debate.
I have something too, Joe.
I'm just going to go to Cody real quick because I was
Okay.
kind of curious.
And then to me,
As a math genius, I was curious to see what you had to say.
I do love linear algebra. Those are my favorite. No, I'm serious.
I was hoping you said that,
I
Cody.
was a math major.
I
and
know you
took
were.
a year of it. And I love it. I was actually curious about something else. Why is calculus a requirement to take the class? Because I looked at the list of stuff, and you can do linear algebra with no calculus knowledge. And it's actually, what I was thinking about is and this was eye-opening for me when I took it, is it's a really different form of math that if you don't like calculus, which I'm sure there are some mathematically inclined students who don't love calc that could take it as an alternative, and it kind of opens up the world of math. I was curious why it would be restricted to only calculus students.
It's a really good question, and one that I didn't settle on, or our team didn't settle on lightly, Cody. As far as the reason at the end of the day. I think in our work in canvassing colleges and specifically engineering schools, one of the things that we hear regularly is the importance of having that ad calc or multivariable calculus before you go into some of the high level physics and engineering classes. So we didn't want to send the wrong message there partially. The second thing is that our advanced calculus classes do enjoy some pretty good enrollment. And, we want to be able to sustain that over time. And so at least initially, the way our team was thinking about it, and it may evolve over time, is that we really want to try to target those students who have gotten through ad calc and had that experience and really are committed to going to the math, exploring math at that level moving forward. So it wasn't done in isolation. Like I said, we looked at a lot of what the colleges are reporting back to us as far as what they're looking for. And, I think because it is new and we're kind of embarking on this with very few models, we decided to go in that direction, but we would certainly be open to other suggestions moving forward.
Just one thing I would maybe consider, and I'm reflecting on my own experience. I did AP Stat as an elective when I was doing BC Calc at the high school with Mr. Skakanich. And 2 years ago when I was a senior. And you maybe consider making it an option for people to do as an elective, so if you haven't completed calculus but you're enrolled in it, because then it would solve the issue Kathleen was talking about of being only available for sophomores who are taking calculus. It would then give you presumably another year or two of students available. And
no, it's a great point. We continue to kind of try to find that balance. One of the things that's happened probably since you've graduated is all the AP computer science classes have been added. So we have a good number of students, as you've seen in previous reports, who are taking both AP computer science principles and AP computer science A. And so a lot of our students who are on this pathway that don't pursue a course in independent study will take advantage of AP Stat and the two other computer science classes, because that will give them college credit. I think one of the criticisms here, both of ad calc and honors linear algebra, as we have them, is that they don't often lead to much, if any, recognition when you get to that to university or college level. Some kids will have to, depend upon where they go, retake these courses. So the value of having the AP credit sometimes outweighs exploring the independent study. So we try to work with every individual child to be able to give them what they need in order so that they can continue to pursue their passion and pathway.
Just to the last comment, I totally missed an opportunity to make a math joke. I should have said that calculus and linear algebra are totally orthogonal to each other. Someone got that.
Sweet.
But I would say just to my peers that linear algebra is a really, really amazing class. So just from the content standpoint, I would totally recommend this.